You ready?
Time start.
I'd like to call to order the regular city council meeting for September 9th, 2019, 6 p.m. Madam, roll call.
Mayor Ronnie Felder.
Here.
Chairperson Kashamba Miller Anderson.
Present.
Chair Pro Tem Julia Botel. Here. Councilperson Trodrick McCoy.
Here.
Councilperson Shirley Lanier. Councilperson Douglas Lawson.
Here.
City Manager Jonathan Evans.
Present.
City Clerk Claudia Anthony is present. City Attorney Don Nguyen.
Present.
You may proceed.
We'll have a moment of silence followed by the Pledge of Allegiance led by Mayor Felder.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Are there any additions, deletions, or substitutions?
No, Madam Chair, none from staff.
Okay, disclosures. Can we have a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Madam Clerk.
Councilperson Lawson.
Yes.
Councilperson McCoy.
Yes.
Pro Tem Botel.
Yes.
Chair Miller Anderson.
Yes.
Unanimous vote.
Okay, we don't have anything under the consent agenda. Unfinished business, petitions and communications for filing,
None.
awards and presentation, none. Public hearings, item number 1.
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Riviera Beach, Palm Beach County, Florida, fixing the adjusted tax valuation of real property located within the corporate limits of the city, levying a tax on real property and tangible business personal property located within the corporate limits of the city for the fiscal year beginning October 1st, 2019, and ending on September 30th, 2020, fixing the millage rate of 8.4520 mills thereon for said year, that the millage rate of 8.4520 is 4.75% higher than the rollback rate of 8.0689, providing a severability clause and providing an effective date.
Have a motion?
So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
Let the record reflect Councilwoman Shirley Lanier is on the dais. All right, do we have any public comment cards for this item?
Madam Chair, there are no public comment cards for this item. The acceptance of public comment cards for this item is now closed.
All right, Mr. Manager.
Madam Chair and members of the council, this item before you this evening is to adopt the millage rate of 8.4520 mils, which equates for a 4.75% higher rate, well, not rate, but actually amount that folks will see in their tax rate. If we have a PowerPoint presentation that we'll get into showing some of the specifics, but the first slide gets into the taxable value that our community has experienced since 2016 and where we project to be in 2020. Obviously, the years in 2010 to 2014 was when we saw a significant decline in the assessed value in the assets here in the city of Riviera Beach. We have since recovered from the Great Recession that commenced in 2008, but obviously with municipal governments, we collect our monies in arrears, so it takes a little bit longer. We feel the impacts later on, and we stay in a recession quite a bit longer. But you can see that the taxable value within our community has increased significantly since the recession impacted us. The next slide before you talks about the gross taxable value. Prior to this fiscal year that we're getting ready to embark upon, the taxable value in the city of Riviera Beach was $5.26 billion. We've actually seen that number increase to $5.6 billion, which is a 7.5% increase. Your millage rate remains the same, but you can see that the revenue that is collected as far as ad valorem revenue, if we are to collect 100%, which by statute you can only budget for 95%, you would collect you collected 44.5, and then this fiscal year that we're getting ready to go into, fiscal year 1920, you see 47.7 million, but in all actuality, the most that we can budget for to collect is 45.3% or $45.3 million. The rollback rate is the rate that would generate the same revenue the city collected in fiscal year 2018-2019, and that rate is 8.0689, and that would, in the event that the board wanted to consider that rate, that would have a significant impact on the overall budget, that we would have to make the appropriate adjustments to be able to sustain the increases that have been experienced as a result of this particular budget. Next slide. Oh, that's, yeah, so, do we have any questions, comments from the board with respect to the first item that's before you as far as adopting the millage rate for the purposes of the budget? And the budget is balanced with the assumption of an 8.4520 millage rate.
Madam Chair,
Go ahead.
how deeply would we have to cut to, even if only very slightly, reduce that millage rate?
If you were to reduce the millage rate from the impact is if you go back, you would only collect $42.3 million versus the 45, so you would see an impact of roughly, $3 million, and then we would have to go out there and then get into each of the departments, which departments you would have to make significant reductions. One of the things that this board provided us guidance on was the healthcare, and that's certainly something that in the event that we did not make the modifications to the health insurance program, any monies that you would have experienced as far as growth would have been assumed just by healthcare, and so we would not be able to offer things such as pay raises or equity adjustments or addressing some of the other things that put monies into employees' paychecks. The increase that the city has experienced as a result of the taxable value growth, based on the projected numbers that we received on the health insurance side, would have absorbed all the incremental increases that we saw with tax value. So that is why the changes were recommended, because from a sustainability perspective and being able to compensate your employees for pay raises, if you didn't make those changes, we would be in a significantly different situation. So you'd have to make some pretty drastic reductions in services to be able to go back to what the rollback rate would be.
Any other questions? Comments? All right. Mr. Evans?
That is item 1, so that would be comment cards.
Councilperson Lawson.
Yes.
Councilperson Lanier.
Yes.
Councilperson McCoy.
No.
Pro Tem Botel.
No.
Chairperson Miller Anderson.
Yes.
That motion is approved with Councilpersons McCoy and Botel dissenting.
Item number 2.
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Riviera Beach, Palm Beach County, Florida, making appropriations and establishing a budget for the fiscal year beginning on October 1st, 2019, and ending on September 30th, 2020, providing a severability clause and providing for an effective date.
So moved.
Madam Chair, we do have public comment card on this item. The acceptance of public comment cards on this item is now closed.
All right, do we have a second?
Second.
All right. Mr. Manager?
Madam Chair, members of the board, this item is to discuss the fiscal year 2019-2020 tentative budget. The first fund that we will talk about is the general fund, where your ad valorem revenue is housed and is most certainly the largest fund in the city. When we go through the ad valorem, or the property tax revenue that the city is anticipated to collect, you can see tentatively we've budgeted for well over $45 million, but the entire revenue that the city is projected to collect in the general fund is well over $77 million. There is a change of about $2.7 million, or 3.67%, but one of the things I want to bring to the board's attention if you look at permits, fees, and licenses, you also look at franchise fees, grants, fines, and some of the other accounts that we're not seeing the growth, and we're actually seeing a reduction in revenue collected. So that causes some concern and some pauses for staff as we anticipate that we may see some challenges in the economy over the next 12 to 16 months. And so we're acutely aware of that. We're continuously monitoring that. But as we stand right now, the city is in very strong fiscal conditions. But in the event that we see a reduction in ad valorem growth and we don't see economic and redevelopment occur in our community, it will have a lasting impact. If you go to the expenditure side, you'll see that obviously per statute, we're required to balance our budget, but your most expensive element of your municipal government operations is your personnel costs, with personnel costs projected to be well over $42 million in the general fund. Now, this is not speaking to your enterprise fund, so your general government. It's also very important for the folks at home to know that your law enforcement department, as well as your fire department, realistically, when you look at combining an $18 million and plus a $12 or $20 million operation, when you're looking at just your public safety operations, the ad valorem revenue that you collect does not help pay for much more outside of public safety. So when we had the conversation with the board earlier in budget sessions and how do we diversify our revenue, that's why the discussion with respect to looking at the parking enterprise fund or the fire assessment, because we certainly know that to provide the gamut of services that we offer, we have to diversify our funding streams to be able to continue to offer services to the residents of Riviera Beach. The next slide goes into the personnel changes. Now, not included in this is some reclassifications that will come back to the board at a later date, but these are some of the things that were incorporated into the operating budget for your consideration. We fully fund wages and salaries. One of the things that we also put in here is, and it will be discussed later on, is contingency to be able to address some of the compression and inequities we have within our compensation strategy. Staff would like to move forward with looking at the original study and finding out ways to look to implement some corrective measures to address that. Fully funding the health insurance program, the city went to a high deductible health plan with a health reimbursement account versus the traditional plan that it had in place. Because of the sheer cost to continue to operate the plan, it was not something that was long-term sustainably operated from the city standpoint, because our claims to premium ratio was outpacing what we were paying to our provider. So we did start off with a increase of well over 25%, and we were able to whittle that down significantly, but making some plan modifications. But staff is going to continue to monitor that plan, work with the insurance provider to make sure that there's a lot of education that is provided to employees, as well as monitoring the activities associated with the plan, because a high deductible health plan with a health reimbursement account provides for additional transparency. And then fully funding and meeting all our pension obligations and requirements. That's something that we have been very good at, and actually in the top percentile for being as our pension plans being fully funded. So that's something that's positive, and kudos to the work of the elected officials and staff at the time. Getting into the position changes, you can see that we added one part-time detective position to assist in the recovery of items. We've had a lot of success with that position, and that position has been a volunteer position. So this time the city decided to commit the fiscal resources to be able to actually see the collection of items that are stolen, recovered, and returned back to their rightful owner. We also added a communication supervisor position. The communication supervisor position is in order for us to maintain compliance with the recent change in state law as far as the coverage, and that was something that was advocated from the law enforcement department to make sure we had that coverage and complied with the state statutes. Part-time crossing guard position that was added to be able to make sure that we have uniform coverage throughout our city, especially at a lot of our to assist our local schools, and then unfunding 3 sergeant positions to help absorb some of the fiscal impact associated with that while reducing some of the long-term costs for the organization. In the Public Works Department, we added an Assistant Public Works Director position. This allows for us to have additional support, admin support, and administrative support in that department. And we have decided to unfund the engineering technician position and the operation manager position to fuse duties and responsibilities to the Assistant Public Works Director position. And there's currently positions in the organization right now that can absorb those duties and responsibilities. The next department is the legal department, to add a labor relations attorney. This particular position is very important to city administration as well as HR and the legal department. With some of the employment contracts and the things that the legal department is currently tasked with, this provides a very important addition to Mrs. Wynn's team and allows for us to be proactive in handling some of the union contracts that we have. The hope is one day for us to work in tandem with the labor attorney and the city attorney and the HR director to have that as the labor negotiation team, and it's handled in-house versus the current arrangement that allows for those services to be contracted out. We want to insource versus outsource with respect to those relationships. The other position that we're looking to add in administration would be a deputy city manager position to assist in the day-to-day operations of the city, but to help manage some of the capital projects and some of the initiatives that we have moving forward. Later on, you'll hear about the enormous amount of capital projects and things that we have on the horizon, and so having somebody that is managing those multi-million-dollar projects to ensure that the procurement process is followed appropriately, that we get those projects off the ground and move forward with some of those initiatives. Also to assist with reviewing any things that are happening at Tallahassee, to work with the departments to find out if there's an opportunity for us to go to Tallahassee and advocate on our behalf, or in a situation where we need to provide some defensible positions to ensure that Tallahassee does not continue to encroach on home rule authority. This position will be in the structure of the leadership team in the city, and will assist in partnerships with other agencies, whether it be the school district, whether it be the county, et cetera. They will help coordinate and facilitate those relationships, especially with the Port of Palm Beach as well. You have in the library unfund one part-time page position and unfund a library program aide. I believe those positions have morphed into something else, and that there's not necessarily, the responsibilities have morphed into something else, and there's not necessarily a need for those positions at this particular time. And it's important to note that the unfunding is that we keep the position, we just do not associate the dollars with that position. So in the event that we ever needed to say we needed those positions, especially with the construction of a new library or another facility, you can go ahead and put the funding behind those positions as opposed to creating the new position. So that's our recommended course of action for a lot of these that you'll see. Development services, unfund a code compliance officer, and unfund an executive assistant position because of the existing staff capacities that's in that department. With the finance and administrative services department, you have delete of 2 part-time business tax receipt specialists and the creation of 1 business tax receipt position. With the procurement department, we previously transferred the senior procurement specialist from the procurement department to the USDA, or USD, I'm sorry. This particular position assists as being that person that's the point person for capital projects and making sure that the procurement processes are followed. So it's a vital position, but we wanted to ensure that the utility district is utilizing that person exclusively, so it's our position that effectively they would pay for that position in the operation. The other items are some additions that we added, is funding the $125,000 for the Shot Spotter program. Currently, the $125,000 is not necessarily a new expansion of the program, but to offset the costs associated with the shot spotter technology that's utilized over at the Port of Palm Beach that gives us better coverage of Peanut Island and the area surrounding the port and Peanut Island. An additional $75,000 to commence the process of a fire assessment study to be able to provide the board back some options as to how do we look to diversify our revenue streams. An additional $15,000 in operational expenses for the Justice Service Center. Previously, they had about $10,000 in the account, but they are more so requesting an additional $5,000 for a total of $15,000 to help offset the costs associated with providing the services in that operation. Additional $5,000 for educational incentives. That's contingent on the conversations that we had, or based on the conversations we had with the board concerning that matter. And then an additional $300,000 to address wages as a result of market conditions. And we're starting to see that even the study that we undertook in 2017, we're finding ourselves falling below the market, and we will have a conversation with the board specific to that when we discuss our police contract that we will be going into negotiations with shortly, and so we'd like to provide you some information as it relates to our peer agencies. So,
Madam Chair?
Go ahead.
A quick question. Going back to the general fund slide for a second, the fourth item under revenues is permits, fees, and licenses, and I can see that it's gone down by about $500,000. Have we taken a look at increasing our impact fees? And second part of that question, if we did that, would it sort of reduce the desire on the part of developers to put projects here? I mean, how badly would it impact us in the eyes of developers? Or you know, I understand that we are not very high when you compare us with other cities in terms of our impact fees, so I wonder if we've had a look at that.
Per the statute, it requires us to go through a study to look at our impact fees because we have to have the rational nexus tests, and you can't levy a fee that is not justified and goes to offset what the impact would be on the developer. So if this is something that the board wants us, and I think if we haven't done it in a significant amount of time, it warrants us going ahead and looking at our impact fees. Now, obviously, developers don't necessarily like impact fees because it does make the cost for capital projects more expensive. Nonetheless, you don't want a situation where the taxpayers are offsetting the costs associated with the development project. So you have to have that delicate balance that whatever their impact is, it is offset by the monies that they contributed in the zone that which the project is, to be able to address your capacity issues on your roadway or wastewater or water infrastructure. So to Mr. Sherman, I don't know when the last time is that we did that study, but it is certainly something that we should consider if it's been a significant amount of times. And organizations like to do the study probably every 5 to 7 years. There's also a partnership through the University of Florida to be able to enter into an interlocal agreement where they assist in providing that rational nexus test versus you expending money and going with a private sector consultant. It's a significantly cheaper process when the product is still legally defensible, et cetera. But Mr. Sherman, when was the last time that we?
I'd say at least 10 or 12 years ago.
So
Now, we just did the utility district impact fees that you approved back in June. But as far as the cities, it's been a while.
And a lot of communities have also looked at they call it transportation impact fee, but now it's a mobility fee. And it looks at, the cost and the impact to your roadway network, because as we consistently see development and redevelopment occur in our community, having that ability to address transportation not just from a, asphalt road, but from a pedestrian access and bike lanes and those types of things. Those are all things. So, if the board would be so inclined, I think that's something that staff should certainly look at moving forward with the process of an impact fee study, especially if it's been over a decade that we've done that, because the cost for construction has gone up. So it's safe to assume that you're not getting, in essence, what you should be collecting as it relates to impact fees, because you have parks and recreation impact fees that should probably be adjusted, public safety impact fees, all those broad gamuts of things that we may not have on the table, at least to the tune where it needs to be in the 21st century.
As a follow-up, Madam Chair. I'm concerned specifically about any development that might happen on Singer Island because, as we know, we have had issues with our wastewater treatment over there, and I think if we're going to have any kind of significant development on the island, we need to consider the impact that that's going to have on wastewater in particular. So,
And to that point, Madam Vice Chair, I think this is the time to do it, especially considering it's a probably 6 to 12 month process depending on, but you want to get those impact fees on the books before you see your Marina Phase 2 project or your City Hall P3 projects. You want to make those modifications now, because at the end then you've lost out on hundreds of thousands, potentially even millions of dollars worth of private capital that would have assisted in offsetting the cost for infrastructure.
Madam Chair,
Go ahead.
just a quick follow-up in regards to the settlements of the impact fees. Some of my concerns with increasing impact fees right now is that we're looking to develop and build our community right now. So if we discuss adding or increasing impact fees and we don't have our permitting and building departments in proper order right now, I think that's already going to be an addition to discouraging people to come and develop in this community. So our focus right now really needs to be permitting and building department to really get that operating effectively and efficiently, because right now we are well behind the times when it comes to permitting. We have residents that are waiting for a long time just to get a simple permit in addition to their home. So we can discuss the impact fees and start looking into that study, but I think our focus has to be our building department.
Anyone else?
Madam Chair,
Go ahead.
to that line of comments, Mr. Councilperson Lawson, I actually just looked at the impact fees for a single-family home. On average, is $17,000 for a 1,700 square foot home. That's pretty astronomical. That's aside from all construction costs, and that's not even, I guess that's both inclusive of, the impact fees that we levy from the general side, and then also those that's from the utility side. But yeah, I would be a little apprehensive about really doing a lot with impact fees, especially unless there's a study. Now, you did mention you would like to revisit that before Phase 2. Is that where we are and why there hasn't been anything to come forward with Phase 2, because there is some desire to move forward with reviewing what impact fees are?
No, that came out of the discussion that we're having with the board as it relates to this particular item. Another thing I can tell you, Councilman, is that we may have that study come back and tell us our impact fees are too high. So there is that delicate balance as to be careful what you ask for, because I've seen it both sides, that government entities have had a structure in place and then they do the study and you find out we may be high on the residential side and low on the commercial side, but then we have the rationale to be able to go ahead and do that. But that's still a significant process that staff would have to undertake, and ultimately you as the board would have to agree to say, yes, move forward with this impact fee or charge only these certain impact fees. You can make that decision as well, that there's certain impact fees that you as the City of Riviera Beach want to be more competitive than others and say maybe not levy X, Y, and Z. But without going through the study, I can't tell you if we're high on the residential side or high on the commercial side or industrial side, et cetera.
Follow up.
Go ahead.
So if we can, I guess my question is, how are we going to dispose of this? Because I think you've pretty much wrapped up the presentation for general fund. I had some questions regarding the positions. And do we move on to the utility special district, or do we take them right now?
We can take the questions now since we're on this currently.
Well, from general housekeeping, this is the first thing, and I think I kind of noticed this on Friday. Did we not advertise this because of the hurricane?
The budget meeting?
Yes.
The budget meeting was advertised.
With the legal notice that I'm speaking of, that 10-day notice.
Yes.
There was a notice on Friday.
Oh, so we don't have to follow the 166.041 10-day requirement for ordinances?
No, because we had advertised the original meeting as required, and then when they had the hurricane declaration, that kind of waives a lot of that. And what we were told is we needed to have the 3-day notification.
Are you sure? Because what I've seen related to the executive order from the governor, the requirements dealt with operations, not with the requirement of public notice. So there were things that the governor suspended,
Right.
statutes,
Right.
but none of them dealt with the requirement to give sufficient notice to a meeting.
But it's a reschedule, and that's, excuse me, we spoke to the county specifically about our notification. We were told 3 days,
Okay,
because it's a reschedule.
okay, I certainly like to know more offline. Question for Mr. Manager related to staffing. So there are a number of position changes, and I wanted to see if you can go into details as to exactly what this represents from the staffing perspective. If we just take, for instance, the police department, that's on slide 9, the unfunded 3 police sergeant positions, are those positions currently filled?
Those positions are vacant. And,
Oh.
yep. And any position that was unfunded, I believe that either the individuals have been moved into a different type of position, or the positions were vacant.
Correct.
So, taking the first scenario, move to a different position, and you're saying that that didn't happen with the sergeant's positions?
The sergeant positions, I think, were just left open. There was just no movement on that. There was no position, no one in those positions.
Okay. Moving forward to the other department, Public Works, the engineering technician and operations manager.
The engineering technician position, I believe, was a vacant position, and the operations manager position is being moved back into a lower level position.
Do we know what that position is?
I believe that's stormwater manager position.
Do we have a calculation of what the difference is in salary?
We can look at what the impact is as far as salary for that particular position, but that was in the management structure in the development, or the Public Works Department.
Management structure?
It was the Public Works Director, and then they served as a de facto assistant administrator in that operations. But this position is, when we looked at the folk in that position, we decided to move that individual back into a lower level position and take that position as well as another position and unfund that for the purposes of creating that assistant director position.
Well, that department in particular, we're still operating with an interim Public Works Director, correct?
That is correct.
And we're currently going to be, under your proposal, what we have in front of us today, adding an Assistant Public Works Director position.
That is correct.
But currently, the only permanent position we have in the highest ranking of that department is that Operations Manager position.
That is correct.
Okay, well, that's kind of where I have some pause, because if we don't have a permanent director, why would we remove the one permanent position that's there in place of a possible assistant in the future?
Councilman, there's a lot of operational elements that I'd like to have a discussion with you more offline with respect to that position and the incumbent in that position. And I can provide you the rationale behind
Well,
why we chose to make that move.
And I certainly respect that, and I don't have a problem with it, but looking at it now, and then we're going to talk about potentially removing it to, I guess, converting not the position, but the person in the position to a lower level position, kind of creates now we're moving people around, and we have a huge, or possibly a huge pay change, and we still have no permanent director nor an assistant director. I really I would like to have had a conversation as to exactly what we're looking, and particularly Public Works is very intimate to my district, given all of the changes that we have going on in the northwest area of Riviera Beach. So I certainly would like to have that, but I don't know how we are to take this, and I want to certainly reserve that opportunity to go offline and have a discussion about it. But that in particular, I want to know more information before I can feel comfortable with supporting it.
Yeah, we can certainly provide that information, and that position is going from an operations manager to a street and grounds manager position. That's what I said, stormwater, but I was corrected. It's a street and grounds manager position.
That's the title. Well, that's the.
Yes, that would be the title.
So within the budget, do we change, I guess, pay classes, or is that already an existing pay class for the street and grounds position?
It's already an existing position in the overall classifications, employee classifications.
Okay, just to jump forward for the purpose of time, the library and also development services has 2 unfunded positions. Are any of those positions current? Well, I think you said library is not being filled,
Right.
correct?
Right.
How about development services?
Those positions, to my knowledge, are all, the unfunded positions, there's no individuals that are impacted as a result of unfunding those positions.
And we budget first, and then at some point throughout the new fiscal year, the job description gets created.
That is
Okay.
correct. Yeah, if
Alright.
it is a new position, then a new job description is created if one is not in existence.
Okay. Last question relative to the general fund's positions. The labor relations attorney, and this is perhaps a question for Ms. Nguyen or Mr. Sherman, do we have an approximation of what the outside labor negotiation costs that we spend per year?
Now, we'd have to, again, most of that is done through our insurance provider. You know, the attorneys are paid through them, so we'd have to go back to risk. We could get that number for you.
So help me understand, is it a claim?
Oh, I'm sorry, you're talking about the labor attorney?
Yes.
I'm sorry. We budget $75,000 for that position.
No, he means how much do we spend on police
Outside.
negotiations,
Right,
fire?
right. We
Right.
budget $75,000 for outside attorney.
So that came from professional services under the managers?
Correct, under HR.
And that's SEIU?
It would be all your
PBA?
unions. Yep. IAFF and PMSA.
And you said we budget 75. Do we have a close to number? And obviously, I would think that that's not in the budget currently.
And to speak with respect to the efficiencies that would be gained currently as it relates to the negotiation process, it is a pretty tedious and lengthy process to try to coordinate with outside firms as to when we can sit and convene and work through some of the union negotiation process. So having that operations internal to the city will provide for us to be able to speak relatively quickly or adjust relatively quickly to whatever the conditions are, and we will have somebody in-house that intimately knows all the nuances and intricacies of the contract. So there's a lot of efficiencies that are gained as well as a result of bringing that operation in-house.
Mr. Manager, I would agree to that premise, but I just wanted an approximation because that's 4 different unions, and I can assure you that we probably spend well above $75,000 a year in just attorney costs for labor negotiations.
Mr. Sherman, is there monies in another department for legal expenses? Because I know that the attorney's office has.
The attorney's office has funds for legal services, but the negotiating comes out of the HR department. And
So,
this year, we've spent $65,000.
so we've spent $65,000 for contractual arrangements for our unions, but we do have another tranche of money, for lack of better terms, that in the event that Ms. Nguyen needed to get labor counsel for other related items, that she has access to.
Correct.
Yeah.
So-
We have a contract services line item, and I believe it's $125,000.
So to your point, Councilman, is that, yes, for the union negotiation side, there's the $75,000, but on the other labor side, there's another cost. So to your point, yes, that would be correct when you look at those 2 different pots of money as it relates to employment-related issues.
Okay, that's it for general fund. Thank you.
Anyone else? Now, is this the section with the legislative budgets? With the?
General fund, yes.
Yes, so did you all go back and make any of those adjustments from our discussion last time?
I believe we got them all. I would tell you to take a look at it,
The one online?
the one that's online.
I don't think it's right for me anyway. Let me go back to it. I don't think it is. Just for me, for District 2, put the two travel, I got away from the line, what it was for 19. Hold on. Okay, so for 20, make it 4,000 travel and the promotional 4,000.
I'm sorry, what are you referring to, Madam
I'm
Chair?
referring to legislative budget for District 2.
So you want to change your travel to 4,000?
Make it what it was for FY19,
Okay.
so it should be 4,000 for travel, and then, I think it was supposed to be 3,500 for promotional, but you keep 4 and 4 is what it wound up being, I guess, for 19. You got it? Mr. Sherman?
Well, in 19, we did 4 and 4, and then we had 5 under citizens leadership. So now we're not budgeting citizens leadership under district. So that's why those two went back, excuse me, to the
Right.
7,500 and the 5,500.
But that wasn't the way it was supposed to have been last year anyway. It just went there because it was supposed to have been gone totally. But because they didn't fund it from the city side, it wound up being used for the Citizen Leadership Academy. So it's just reduced for that district.
So you want to change the travel to 4,000,
And the promotional,
to 4,000?
yes.
And the excess funds, do you want to put them anywhere, or you're just reducing your budget?
I'm just reducing my
Okay.
budget. Any other questions for anyone? All right, Madam Clerk?
Mary Bram,
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah, I'm sorry. I was like, Ms. Bram is voting? No. I'm sorry.
So I understand, Madam Chair,
Yeah.
we still have the
They're voting on all.
Well, are we,
USD operating.
Yeah.
okay, so we're going to continue through the rest of the PowerPoint?
Yes.
I know, because I know we did part of the PowerPoint and then we stopped and.
Yep.
All right, so we're going to go all the way through. All right, hold on, Ms. Bram.
The next item is the Utility Special District Operating Fund, and I will have Mr. Sherman present these next couple of slides to the City Council. Mr. Sherman?
The next series of slides, for the record, Randy Sherman, Director of Finance. The next series of slides are all of the enterprise fund slides that we had talked about, again, at the prior budget meetings. First one up is the Utility Special District. As you can see, the budget for FY 2020 is $28,581,000. It's just a $1 million increase from the prior year. This budget does not anticipate any rate increase, as you have not adopted a rate increase for 2020, so they balance their budget without the rate increase. We are seeing a slight uptick in usage and the water and the collections, which is justifying the $1 million. On the bottom, you notice there is a decrease in the personnel costs. Again, we moved the one position for the senior procurement specialist back over to procurement, and they eliminated 2 water treatment plant operator positions that were vacant, and we've added 1 senior equipment operator position. So the net change there is a minus of 2 positions. Questions on utility?
Go ahead.
So, Mr. Sherman, I know we at least kind of breezed over this in the past, but I want to understand what can we do to put in place a rate study for 2020?
We're currently undergoing a
Yeah.
rate study.
We met with the rate consultants today for roughly about 4 hours to talk about the rate, and we believe that we have communicated what we believe to be some of the concerns that have been articulated by this board in conversations privately to bring back some thoughts on to the board to consider about a rate that is conscientious of some of the concerns that some of the residents have posed as a result of their water bills. And so they're doing the analysis, and we're revising the capital improvements plan because that is a main driver for what the rate will be in subsequent years. So we should be able to bring you back something here in the next little bit that kind of speaks to some of the concerns that the board has, and then you guys can provide us additional information as to what you think.
Follow up, Madam Chair. So this rate study, would it encompass currently debt service for, I guess not current debt service, but potentially future debt service for our capital plan? And let me see if that's in here, but I know 5 years out or wherever we were, but when we were talking about our new water plant facility?
Yes, the answer is yes. And one of the questions that came up today, which was actually brought up at the capital meeting, I can't remember who asked the question, when the consultant looked at the list of capital projects that were on there, and then a new plant, they felt that some of the capital projects could be eliminated. You don't need to do all the capital projects if you're going to be building a new plant. So they're going through that process. And I believe at that point, the director or interim director said about maybe $15 million of projects could be removed. So again, they are working through that, and that is all built in to the rate study, the future debt service.
Follow up, Madam Chair. So are we going with this consultant? This isn't something we have to put out?
We did. You actually approved the contract, I want to say back in June.
Okay. All right, so it's already budgeted, was it budgeted in 19, or was this done for?
It's coming out of the 19. It was budgeted in 19. We actually started it in 17. We brought it forward in 2018, and no action was taken. So now we are refreshing those numbers.
Okay, and if I can remember correctly, I think before you said that when we have a discussion about our rate study, that this would be the time to have the conversation relative to the bond covenants with.
Well, we'll talk about the bond covenants. You can't change the bond covenants unless you want to take out all the debt and, do a refinancing, and that's the only ability to change those bond covenants.
But to I think where you may be going, Councilman, is I think that some of the things that we talked about is understanding that I think 120 individuals participate in the program that we have that assists with the utility payments to the utility district. And so we've had discussions about the ability to look at some rates for that tier to be able to address it more long-standing and something that can provide relief to those that really need the relief. And we communicated that in the meeting. So I think we're going to get to a lot better point than we've been in the past and still make sure that we stay in compliance with the bond covenants, but they still need to break down some more information and provide it back to us.
Mr. Sherman, Mr. Evans, how much are we budgeting for that, I guess, that program that you're speaking of? For, I guess, the allowance?
Yeah, we budgeted $25,000.
And how, if I could say, how are we doing with that? Are we getting close to that every year?
No, not anywhere close to it.
The reason, and thank you for kind of getting us there, Mr. Evans, I'm just hard pressed to understand that we've even had folks to come to these meetings saying that their bill is astronomical and it's becoming repetitive. And I don't know if we need, and certainly I don't want to circumvent the bond covenants, and I don't want to give away free water, But I think there has to be a very detailed and a very robust conversation about what's happening with the water utility billing department. And certainly nothing to your staff or their ability, but it's becoming almost like you can set your clock to somebody coming in by phone or email. In most cases, they've already been to your customer service office, then they're coming to us. But I really want to see if we can address this, like from an internal control. How are we measuring that these meters are in fact? Are we doing some quality assurances to make sure that, yes, the meter tests, but is there a way that on the back end we can make sure that this is accurate? Because just like anything, be it digital or be it analog, these things fail. And for somebody that pays $60 a month to go to $400, I just can't see it.
Yeah, again, I guess what I'd like to remind of is when we were on the old meters, we had 20% unaccounted for water. Okay, so that meant 1,000 gallons of water went through the treatment plant, and we were only billing for 800 gallons. We didn't know where the other 20% was going. So I think part of what these meters are doing is helping us find that other 20%. Now, you're always going to have loss when you flush meters, or you got a leak, or water main break or something. You're always going to have water that doesn't go through a meter and won't be billable. But again, I think what these meters are doing is helping us find that 20%. Now, in the past, in the old rates, if I needed $28 million to run the utility district, I had to charge up because I'm only billing at 80%. So I think that's what we're starting to see, is some of that coming in and balancing. And it certainly is a shock when, maybe my meter has been reading at 90% efficiency, and now I'm at 100%.
Right,
I mean, that's a 10% increase in my usage, which I didn't see before. So that, I think, is part of it. But absolutely, we, as you found today when we had that one customer, there's a lot of leaks that these meters are finding that we didn't have before. And again, because we're finding these before the customer is finding them, it's giving us the ability to go out and stop some of that waste that we weren't billing for before.
Thank you for your optimism. That's all I have.
Anyone else? All right.
Okay, the next enterprise fund that's up is the Marina Operating Fund. Again, this budget is provided for us by Seven Kings. They are seeing, again, still a rigorous business environment down there. Just a slight uptick in their revenues of $100,000. And as you see down on the bottom, some of it is personnel to cover the traffic down there, and then the rest of it is their operating. And I will tell you on the marina, when we first went with Seven Kings, the marina owed the general fund over $5 million. And right now, due to their operations, they've been able to pay back close to $1.5 million of that, and build an R&R fund, replacement fund for the marina of close to $600,000 as well. So they really have been performing well.
Madam Chair?
Go ahead.
Mr. Sherman, how long has Seven Kings been in place at the marina?
They just finished up their third year, I believe.
And in
So
3
they're in
years,
their fourth.
and in just those 3 years, they've generated just close to $1 million towards the general fund?
Again, over $1 million, and then the R&R fund that we had never had before.
Very good.
Go ahead. That's it, Mr.
Thank you.
Lawson.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, the third one is the solid waste collection fund, which is your trash pickup. Again, we have not received the new rate from Waste Management yet. They have the ability to adjust their rate based on sort of like a fuel adjustment charge. Have not seen the new rate for October yet. But again, we have a slight increase based on the number of units that we have. There is a CPI type adjustment into the admin fee, so we've increased that slightly. But again, most of this revenue, we collect the revenue, we pay the admin fee, and the rest goes to waste management. Next one is the stormwater. What you see on the stormwater is flat revenues. Again, this is the $9 fee that you see on your utility bill, residential utility bill. Again, it's a flat charge. It's not based on any usage, which is why the revenues tend to stay flat. We see properties come on, we see properties go up, but for a number of years now, we've carried that same number.
Mr. Sherman?
Yes.
Question, Madam Chair. How does a property go off of,
If it's been demolished, you take certain properties off the stormwater roll, and then again, as you get new construction, someone else would come back on.
right, but even if it's demolished, they still have those standby charges, am I right?
Not on the stormwater, because stormwater, if you have a vacant lot, we don't assess you.
Okay.
That's it?
Mhm.
Go ahead.
On the expense side, again, there are no personnel changes. It all depends on who's in the position and their longevity in that position, which is why you see a slight downtick in that number. Operationally, their biggest charges tend to be their fleet-related charges. They're not paying any utility per se. Their fleet costs have gone down. When we see those changes, again, balanced budget, we move those dollars into capital. So there's an increase in their capital line item. They have put in some capital projects this year on a pay-as-you-go basis. They typically use that for their vehicles, if they're purchasing vehicles, or small drainage projects.
Any questions? All right.
And then we have the parking fund. Again, this is the new fund that we are creating this year. This is the $400,000. Again, that was an estimate for about 6 months worth of operations. We funded it with one staff person, or we budgeted it with one staff person. Some operational costs, that would be, tickets and, driving around picking up the funds and that. But for FY 2020, we think the primary call for these funds would go into the capital. So this would be installing the kiosks at both Ocean Mall and at the marina.
Any questions?
It just seems a pretty conservative, Mr. Sherman. 400,000. At what point are we looking to put this in place?
At what time?
Yes.
I'm thinking, we have to bring back some ordinances, and it depends on how long it takes us to get those ordinances in place. I figured, again, when we were looking at this, that maybe we would have this in by, the first quarter of next year. So this is based off of 6 months.
Okay.
Madam Chair?
Go ahead.
Mr. Sherman and Mr. Evans, if we could look to possibly expedite that with season coming up and with a lot of travelers, we may want to look into possibly getting that done a little sooner than first quarter, just so that we can kind of really capitalize on some of the revenue coming in. So I'm not sure if that's possible, Mr. Evans. I know we have a lot we're working on, but.
Yeah.
Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
My only concern with that, and I think I've expressed this in the past, is that the business owners in the Ocean Mall are very concerned about putting in paid parking without there being an indoor parking lot that I know the CRA is working on. So I wonder if there's any way that we could coordinate the installation of parking meters, but I don't know how long that indoor lot is going to take. I'm a little worried about the business owners in the mall. So, I know that we need the revenue, and I know that we're not going to charge, let's make it very clear, this city people, taxpayers in this city will not be paying for parking, correct?
Based on the proposal and the discussion that we had, our intent is to allow for full-time residents to be able to get a resident pass. Now
Okay.
we can look at some passes that are for seasonal residents and see if there is a desire to effectively do that. But certainly, full-time residents, we want to make sure that we provide that pass so it's free. The other side of it is I think we have to work with and before we would move forward with flipping the switch, I would encourage us to have a meeting with the business communities in both those impacted areas to get their perspective and then work out how a validation process works. Because it's one thing if somebody just jumps in and parks for the sake of parking versus they're visiting one of your restaurants to eat or activities that you have. So we're going to work through that and bring back some things that would be incorporated in the ordinances for you all to
Great.
consider.
Well, I think that would be very helpful. I mean, right now, we have a problem with construction workers on the island parking in that mall, and they don't generate any business for the business owners. So if we could eliminate the construction parking, it would go a long way to helping the business people in the mall to begin with, so.
And I can tell you that in my past experience that when city lots were utilized as overflow, they would have to sign and they would have to get construction permitting, construction vehicle permitting, so they would pay at a higher premium that the city would see $25 or $30 per day per vehicle, and it was a certain area. And if there's limited parking, they end up paying it. So, those are all things that we'll work out and massage out before we bring to the board for consideration.
Thank you.
Response.
Go ahead.
I'm in a different position, Madam Chair. I mean, if you just think from Delray all the way north to Jupiter, I don't know anybody that provides a carve-out for residents. And let me tell you, as much as I love our city residents, you go to the beach, it's an amenity. We have to staff it with the fire department and lifeguards. I mean, businesses, everybody has to pay for parking. I just don't see how we can potentially make any kind of real effort at defraying any of our costs as a city. Everything just can't be free, and I don't support giving us something for free, because let me tell you why. When I get ready to go somewhere, I just account in my budget that you're going to have to pay for parking. It happens at City Place. The exception I probably think is downtown, but who knows. But given that it's on the water, I just don't think that residents should be given free parking, because if you had to go anywhere else similar to us, it costs a lot to put that there. And just to say we're going to carve out just for the purpose of residents, if that's the case, we should let everybody else go for free, because there's really no way of how we can actually determine where our break-even point and where we actually make a profit and defray some of these costs. And you got to remember, we don't make money off of the Ocean Mall as it stands now. So to just say that everything is free, this is the same conversation that we should have and had the discussion about when we touched the surface about the costs associated with Barracuda Bay. If everything is free, we're going to always find ourselves in this situation where we have to really tighten our belt when it comes to the benefits that we offer our city employees, and even further, the service that we offer the citizens altogether. But parking is one of the largest revenue generators a municipality can have, aside from the Avalon tax revenue and utilities. I don't know of any other service, and I think even more so than the building department revenue. So I just can't agree with that. And we're talking about, if you go to the beach, it can't be more than $6, $7, $8 for parking for 2 or 3 hours. So I certainly want to have that discussion, and I don't want it to be that this becomes a consensus or a position of the board, but that is how we can really, save the taxpayers.
There are certain things that we certainly want to have further conversations with the board, but having experienced the situation where the residents park for free, I can tell you that it eliminates, my concern is that if we move forward with the parking program and don't look at that element of part of the parking program, I think it would be hard for the program to get off the ground and be successful. And I can tell you that, in my tenure, at Madeira Beach, that the resident element was carved out, and it eliminated a lot of the arguments, because invariably most of the residents never drove to the beach, and there may be a few folks that would do that, but my concern is if we go forward and we don't consider that, to be able to get it to where it's approved, or even the business community, the element to give vouchers for or validate parking for the business community, you're going to have both your residents and your business community that are going to fight about the institution of the parking, and then you find a spot where even the minimal $400,000 that we're anticipating to collect, we don't collect at all because it's just not a public policy that people want to support. So it's something that we can provide information and we can provide more data, and the board can make an informed decision. But I know even in the situation when we look at the fire assessment, we carved out religious institutions because it was a fight that the council at the time that I worked for did not want to go down that fight. They wanted to get the fire assessment passed, and so that's why they made some concessions with respect to that. So we can look at it and we can have the discussion and see what direction the board wants to go, but it's certainly a valid concern on both sides.
Madam Chair.
Ms. Lanier and then Mayor Felder.
I wanted to say that I think that the residents have the right to park free in their community. I think that if we want to get this project off the ground, that we have to work with the residents of the city, and having residents to pay for parking at their own beach. I don't think that that's fair to them. And if we have people who are coming to the beach who are not residents and they pay, or you have people who are going to businesses there and they get their ticket validated, I think that's fair. But to say that residents have to pay and that people who are visiting those businesses at the Ocean Mall have to pay is just not fair to them.
Mayor Felder's next.
What is the 400,000 based on?
We've had a couple of studies looking at the revenues that would be generated, and this is about half of what they've estimated.
Because even if we give residents passes, what's not to say I get a pass and I get a friend from West Palm Beach that wants to go to the beach, and I say, man, just come out and pick up my pass, right? Would it be something to?
The way that we used to handle it is that you would come into City Hall, you would provide us your vehicle registration, your license plate number, you would get a sticker that has to be displayed on your vehicle, so it wasn't something that you can hand a pass off to somebody, and then our folks would have basically license plate readers, so they can go ahead and the corresponding pass has to match up with the actual license plate of the vehicle. So residents have to come in every so often to get their new passes. And it allows for us to keep a database as well, to be able to push out information to the residents as to, hey, the beach is closed, or these types of things.
So again, what if I have a daughter that don't drive and she's riding with a friend to the beach, but she's a resident of this community? How does she get in?
If she's in a vehicle that has the parking pass, it's free. If she's not in a vehicle that she's with a friend, and she would have to pay the park.
But she's a resident.
But she's not the one driving the vehicle that's parking, that's taking up the spot.
I think we should look at this a little bit more, because it won't be fair if I'm a taxpayer here, and because my daughter isn't in a car with the license plate, that she would have to pay for parking.
Well, if I can
Hold
say.
on, Mr. McCoy. Are you?
Yeah, I just think we need to look. I mean, I understand both sides. One, because we're residents, we should pay. But I think at some point we should go out and ask our residents and let them know how this parking at our beach will help us as a community versus, because I go to City Place. If I go to Lake Worth Beach, it's a no-brainer. I'm going to pay to park. I don't even think about it. When I go to City Place, it's not even a second thought right now. And so I think if we're really talking about moving forward, I mean, once we start putting in all these extra incentives, and I understand it, I just think we need to look at it, and we need to have a buy-in from our community to say, we understand starting out is going to be rough, but it will become normal because people are going to come to our beach regardless, right? But I just think we just need to take a hard look at it and what's going to be best for our community. I agree with Councilman McCoy. We just can't keep this free setting going on because it's killing our community. So I think it's something that we really should dive in and take a look before we make a decision. I mean, I agree with both sides, but what's going to be the best for our city? That's what we need to look at.
And Madam Chair, just from a policy execution perspective and a monitoring perspective, I think it has to be something that the board says all or nothing. Either we're going to allow for or we're not going to allow for it, because administering a program where I would have to have a parking attendant validate an address and that it may say Riviera Beach or West Palm, and unless I have the database to pull it out and say this person's effectively in the city of Riviera Beach but has a West Palm Beach mailing address, it just makes it a quite cumbersome and tedious process. So however we choose to do it, certainly we need to make a decision from a public policy perspective when you all look at the ordinances as to what direction you would like to go, because we don't want to create a situation where a parking attendant ends up becoming referee on certain situations, especially if there's a special event or activities happening at the Ocean Mall or at the marina that's going to bring a lot of people in.
Mr. McCoy, do you still have a comment?
I just wanted to say also, Mayor Felder, this isn't just about the marina, the beach. This is about the marina too. But in any case, we're leasing space for folks to go over to the beach because we have that parking area behind the Cleaning Ambassador Center. That's parking that we lease. And part of a significant part, more than half of the parking spaces we have down at the marina, we're currently making lease payments to Viking. So if you can suggest that we're going to pay a cost to lease space from some private owner and then turn around and give it to our residents for free. And I'm really looking at, when I'm saying of charging, if we're undertaking a phase 2, which we estimated at $200 million in development, probably 7 years from now, I just don't know how we can assure that we're going to pay off our debt service to private investors for coming in here and help transforming our Broadway and Marina corridor and say everybody parks for free. I just don't know how that's going to work. We got to really be able to say, hey, this costs us money because we're going to continuously over years pay this debt back, and to say we can give people free parking. And you got to understand what we're going here for. This isn't church. This isn't a school. This is where people are going to spend money. This is going to make our economy turn. This keeps people employed. And I understand that there are some allowances that we have to have, but a real serious conversation. And my only intention was to respond that I don't agree with free parking, and I would hope that there's a more comprehensive and thorough discussion and regarding the parking situation before we solidify any policy.
That's it. The $400,000, what is the fee schedule like? How much is it per hour were we basing this on?
Again, it's based off the studies that they had, and they gave us a range.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to probably charge a little bit more on the weekend, a little bit less during the week. You might
But
have time of
like
day
an
pricing.
example?
So they gave us a bunch of ranges, and then they came up with this estimate of about
I mean,
$800,000.
Can you just give, are we talking $2 an hour?
Yeah, no,
or are we
like
talking $10 an hour?
two or less per hour.
And with that, did that factor in maybe giving, like the first hour or hour and a half free, or what were any of those?
It did contemplate residents parking for free.
No, I said,
but
like the
not-
first hour, the breakdown, not residents free, but just anyone, the first hour free, or the first 20 minutes
Right.
of free.
Now, and see what we did in West Palm Beach is we gave the second hour free. That way they paid for the first but stayed for 2.
Mhm.
So, there's different ways to work it, but it was in that, $1.50, $2 range.
Because I know if that's the case, if it's like the first hour, hour and a half, that would accommodate people who are going to the restaurants, if
Right.
you're just going for the restaurant. But if you want to go and enjoy the beach, obviously you'll be there for several hours, but,
And I can tell you some of the blowback, because we had in Madeira Beach, we started at $225 and then we went up to $275 per hour. And I can tell you the complaint that we got from the businesses, because we didn't validate for the business community, and every business made it a point to tell me that, Mr. Manager, somebody comes to my business and right when they park, they have to, if they're going to be here for 2 hours, they got to pay $5-6, and it's just an automatic where they can say, I can go to a 5-star restaurant and get free complimentary valet, but to sit here and feed your meters, and then I have to worry about going back out to feed the meters and those types of things. So it creates an experience for some folks that didn't necessarily care for that. So, but we can provide, more information, more data to provide the board all the information necessary to make an informed public policy decision.
Okay, all right. Anyone else? All right.
City does run 3 internal service funds. What that means, we have operations that really service only the government itself. There may be some little ancillary services that go outside the government. One of them is the IT Technology Fund. As you see, we have a $500,000 increase in this budget for next year. Where those dollars are going, $85,000, that adds the 2 positions that we've added, the technicians. Operational cost increases are licenses, fees, annual, contracts that they're paying. And then what we have done here is we increased their capital line item by $225,000. If anything that we've seen this year is we need to put more dollars into capital, upgrade, keep our computers fresh 3 years, rotate things around. So we've added $225,000. Now this, again, this $3 million budget that's proposed here, it gets allocated out to all of the other departments, and we all chip in to pay for the IT budget. So when you look at finance or you look at the manager's budget, you'll see a line in there that say, IT services, and that's what that is.
All right, any questions?
Mr. Sherman, the personnel is solely the IT personnel of 13 people?
Correct.
Does
Anyone?
the gentleman Sheehan from the police department, is he in the IT budget or is he in police?
He's in the police budget.
And do we know, as far as staffing of those 13, how many are vacant?
We do.
It's
Right
an
now-
offline question. We can go offline.
Yeah, okay.
Sorry.
Okay.
Don't want to commit you to something. Sorry about that.
Madam Chair?
Are you finished, Mr. McCoy?
Yes.
Go ahead, Mr. Lawson.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I may have missed, where did the 558,000 come in?
It gets allocated out across the city to all the departments. So utility district pays some, and stormwater pays some, and HR pays some. Every department, based on the number of computers and users and employees that they have, pays a portion of that.
Okay, and why was there an increase?
I'm sorry?
Why was there an increase in change?
We're just trying to upstaff the department, and again, as their annual contracts increase, so every time you add a new software, a new service, that, their annual fees go up, that's the operating line, and then again, putting the money into the capital.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right.
The second one is the fleet services. Again, what this operation does, it maintains all your vehicles with the exception of the larger rolling stock at the fire department. So everyone's vehicle comes through this fleet services department. Again, the budget is allocated to the individual departments that have fleet, and it's based on their fleet sizes. Slight increase here. Again, mainly the personnel type costs. We tried, putting a little bit more money into the operating. Again, they do pay, repairs, maintenance, fuel, those types of issues. And then the capital line is the fleet replacement. That fleet replacement does not include stormwater, and it does not include the utility district. They budget for their fleet separately. So the fleet budgets for the capital get allocated to those departments specifically, that $463,000 is set aside for. And the final internal service fund that we have is our insurance fund. This is not health insurance. This is general liability and workers' comp insurance. Most of the premiums that we pay, and then we have our self-insurance portion here. So every year we go out to bid, we get a binder for our insurance, and this is where we budget those dollars, and then again, you'll see there's an insurance line in all the departments, and depending on what assets they have and their claims history, it's getting allocated across the city. Oh, and I do have one more slide, I believe.
Can you speak,
Sure.
Madam Chair?
Go ahead.
The professional fees under general insurance, what exactly does that mean?
That would be where they're paying for attorneys or investigators or, expert witnesses, those types of issues that they may have to have. Because this is where all the insurance claims are coming in.
But that wouldn't, I don't understand why it's going to be on our general fund if it's a part of a claim.
No, okay, so we have this internal service fund that deals with all the insurance, and then, just like with fleet and IT, this $3.7 million budget gets allocated out to all the departments. So part of that insurance premium, that pays for the water treatment plant, pays for the marina, but then those premiums that we're paying get allocated out to those departments. So when we get settlements, the funds come back in here and everybody shares in the settlements. When we have claims and we have premiums, it gets allocated.
I'm not sure I understand professional fees exactly. What are you saying that
Okay,
we
so
would expend?
as part of the operations of dealing with the insurance and claims, again, not all of our claims are premium covered. So
Okay.
we have premiums, and then we have, obviously, what we have to pay. But, if we have a workers' comp case and we have to bring in witnesses and we have to bring in professionals, that's where we're paying for those. We have to hire attorneys. It comes out of that line.
And that's not covered under claim is what you're saying?
Right.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay. Final slide that we have here, we were asked to bring back the staff compliments. I know we've touched on these throughout the evening. But overall, bottom line for change between FY19 and FY20 is we've actually reduced one position. But again, you see there's some ones and twos up and down the line there. And again, as Mr. Evans touched on those as he went through his presentation.
Go ahead.
Madam Chair, I think at one point we had a conversation, albeit brief, about reducing the number of legislative aides. Did we have a conversation about that? And was consideration given to that thought, or how are we going to proceed with that?
We, from the staff standpoint, based on the conversation that the board had, thought it would be more prudent to schedule it for one of those workshops to have the discussion in greater detail, considering that that's more of a substantive discussion for you all, because it would impact your operations in your respective offices. So instead of just grouping it in as part of the budget process, we still have the ability at another date to have that discussion and get direction from the board. And if the board chooses to make modifications, we can make the appropriate modifications that the board sees fit.
Madam Chair,
Go ahead.
how soon can we have that discussion?
That's actually one of the items that I'm going to ask the board if you'd like to discuss on one of the Saturdays that I have listed out here. So towards the end of the meeting, I'll provide some dates.
Anyone else?
That is the-
One question. I know we had about, close to 80 positions that have been vacant, and a lot of them over the past few years. Have you had an opportunity to look at whether or not we need to continue to maintain those positions, or?
There are certain positions that we have taken a look at as far as the entire full complement. Of course, you have a lot of your department director positions that are vacant, and some of the other key positions that in essence are on the bubble, because I'd like to get down into the specifics with the department director to make a determination on that. But also, there's some positions that we think are positions that we should have, that when we have the discussion about the CRA, some positions that may lend itself to providing for an opportunity should the board consider transitioning some operations over to the city to be able to fill those vacancies. So, we're looking at it holistically, and that's one of the things that we want to bring back to the board as to how long these positions been vacant. Is there somebody that can fill these positions, or has technology augmented the services that are provided and we don't need those positions? Because to the conversation we had with the board, we're carrying about $3.2 million worth of positions. And so we need to have that discussion with you all in a real workshop fashion.
Okay, thank you. That's it for you, Mr. Sherman? All righty. Any, public comment cards?
Mary Graham.
Good evening, Board
Good
Chair,
evening.
Mayor, and City Manager. I totally agree on, I took some things here that are within the budget here, for the budget to be moved. I totally agree with the Deputy City Manager on the procurement. We talked about procurement, the process and the expedition of who's there that can really move this forward. I totally agree with that. I totally agree with the library. We had grants for the library, and we never moved on those grants. So if you're still going to leave some of that in there until we can make a move, I totally agree on that. I totally agree on the attorney relation for the Human Resource Department, because we need that. We need that to move, because if we are to articulate the different degrees and the different things that this city encounters, not just hiring the employees, but also the other realms that takes to function this government. So I totally agree with that attorney labor representation there. And Public Works, who could have said it any better? Some of these positions need to be reclassified. Whether or not you put them 80 positions in there, you are already 3.2 million just in some of those 80 positions there. And you already have a budget of personnel in your general revenue, 40 millions right there. So you are going to have to really just dive there and then just really articulate and process the things that you really need. The engineering tech, if you keep that in there, operational director, because it puts that weight where it needs to be at with that person to do their job and to do their job effectively and to move this. Some of them need to be moved out, so if you want to name it street and grounds management, that's fine. Move it out. Move it out, because some just need to, is not workable. So in order for us to be a city to move, we need these people in place here. The parking, a couple years ago, the uplands of the CRA. I remember when we had those events down there, people were charging $5 for parking. So parking is a big issue in this city here. It was things that was going on at the marina, and people would charge $5. So it is so much here to the safety of the police department. It is 4 components here that we often say: safety, economics, infrastructure, and education.
Thank you.
Youth empowerment, the county is not picking it up.
Thank you, Ms. Brown.
Madam Chair, that completes public comments on this item.
All right. Any other questions or comments from the board? All right, Madam Clerk.
Councilperson Lawson.
Yes.
Councilperson Lanier.
Yes.
Councilperson McCoy.
No.
Pro Tem Botel.
Yes.
Chair Miller Anderson.
Yes.
That motion is approved with Councilperson McCoy dissenting.
Item number 3.
Madam Chair, do we want to go with public comments at this time?
Yeah, we can do public comments. Public comments should be restricted to issues, matters, or topics pertinent to the city of Riviera Beach. Please be reminded that the City Council has adopted rules of decorum governing public conduct during official meetings, which has been posted at the entrance of the council chambers. In an effort to preserve order, if any of the rules are not adhered to, the council chair may have any disruptive speaker or attendee removed from the podium, from the meeting and/or the building if necessary. Please govern yourselves accordingly. And we have the 3-minute time clock.
Madam Chair, the acceptance of public comment cards at this time is now closed.
Okay.
Darrell Leonard, Latoya Perry, Sylvia Gibson.
Chair Pro Tem,
Good evening.
Council, Mayor, City Manager, Council, and staff. Good evening. My name's Darrell Leonard. I'm the chairperson for the Community Development Corporation. This past summer, a representative from the city of Boynton Beach came and gave you a very enlightening presentation on their P3 program dealing with the construction of their city hall, as well as their library and other projects they have going on down there. They did a very outstanding job with that. And a lot of that is what I've been talking about with the city of Riviera Beach, except for with one twist. And that twist will give the city complete control of the project of developing this community. The city will have control, as well as heavily engaging our local contractors. Once again, heavily engaging our local contractors. But last but not least, the proceeds and the funds would stay here right with the city. With that said, I would like to have the opportunity to present, once you have your retreat or your workshops on the weekends, to give you a full scope from start to finish and funding included on how what I would like to present to the council so the city can develop itself and be its own developer and stay in control of this process to ensure our local contractors are heavily engaged and get a very, very fair share of this, of the pie, versus going out, getting developers, and they walk away with all the proceeds and leave only small portions of the project to our local contractors. Once again, I would like to ensure that our local contractors are heavily engaged in this process, as well as the city maintaining control of it, as well as keeping the funds here within the city. And I thank you.
Thank you.
Latoya Perry, Sylvia Gibson, Mary Bram.
Hello, Council.
Good evening.
Good evening. I am the founder of the Diva Cares Foundation, and we're based here out of Riviera Beach. And I come before you today to talk to you about our program we have coming up September 28th, which is the Stiletto Awards. It's a domestic violence awareness gala, and I've sent all you invites. Hope to see you there. Excuse me. And the issue that I have, that here in Riviera Beach, we do not have a safe house for residents that suffer from domestic violence and domestic abuse. If they are called, they have to get outsourced to West Palm, Belle Glade, Delray, Boynton. But we have no secure facility here. And those are some of the things that I feel like in our city we need to address, because domestic violence is a big issue here. And with the Diva Cares Foundation, we're trying to create a program and a home in order to secure our residents and have them safe. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Sylvia Gibson, Mary Bram, J.B. Dixon.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Sylvia Gibson, 470 West 34th Street, Riviera Beach. It's truly a pleasure to come before you this evening on behalf of the West Palm Beach Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority and the Delta Heritage Foundation. For years, the city has been so graciously to co-sponsor various events with us, and we are pleased this evening to let you know that Mayor Felder has graciously agreed to co-sponsor with us our My Brothers and Me Symposium on healthcare issues. That symposium is going to be scheduled in October, and tonight I'm here to ask that you join us as well in sponsorships in various ways. We will have local professional doctors and healthcare professionals. And we just would like to thank the mayor for joining us, and we hope, once you get your letter from me, that you will consider joining us and sponsoring maybe our lunch or other activities. And we thank you very much.
Thank
We'd like
you.
to thank the mayor, the city manager, and all of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mary Bram, J.B. Dixon.
Mayor Brown, Riviera Beach.
Good
I would just
evening.
like to say to the chair, co-chair, the city manager, the mayor, and all of the elected officials, we are so grateful that we dodged that bullet. We have a lot to be grateful for. And what has happened to our neighbors, that should have been a message for all of us. We can prepare, but we are not in control. We are never in control. So as a city and as a board, I appreciate the work and effort that the manager, as well as the mayor and the council representative engaged in. And I'm quite sure that we will continue to engage in. Now, I had a lot of things that I wanted to say pertaining to the budget, and I think that I can say it on the public comment. I listened to the previous budget. You had 1,103 vacant properties on your tax roll, and $600 million that we could be collecting. See, it is things here, when we talk about meeting the accessibility of the city and our tax receipts here, it is a lot of areas, great areas here that you as a board here can see, how can we make these revenues work against our expenditures and how we take them in. And you have 5,400 properties that are homesteaded properties. And how can we move these needles here to promote home ownership? So it is things that within your budget that you could dive into it. And you as a city council, you also sit as the CRA, which the CRA is the city. So Ms. Bram talked about it. So whichever avenues that we go down, we do fund that. And they do owe us millions and millions of dollars, and we're still pumping that in there. And you have 40 CRA properties that are off your tax roll here. So, I mean, it is things here that you all really need to be a little bit more engaged in, to meet our critical needs and what we are going through here. And then even with the police department, I totally agree with that part-time detective communication supervisor, because a lot of times we're broken into and our homes and our cars and everything is just damaged. We don't never recover from anything in this city. So it is some good points, and I'm hoping that Ms. Evans do get you all another national budget award. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
J.B. Dixon.
J.B. Dixon, 3000 North Ocean Drive,
Good
Singer
evening.
Island, and Riviera Beach. You may recall the Friends of the Riviera Beach Schools, which was a foundation originally founded by Councilwoman Botel, who is no longer a director of that. I am one of the current directors of that foundation. You also may remember, obviously, the involvement of the council with Stony Brook. Many of the school children that Friends of Riviera Beach Schools is concerned with live in Stony Brook. Therefore, we were very concerned about the situation with mold at Stony Brook and the lack of repair to kitchens and bathrooms, which were in really dreadful dreadful shape. Since then, Millennia, the management company, has remediated the mold, I understand, and are in the process of redoing all new kitchens and bathrooms in those units. To do that, however, they need to remove the families from there. And the only places that they have are the places that they have completed. So these are clean units with new kitchens and new bathrooms. Unfortunately, though, they're not furnished. Friends of Riviera Beach Schools became involved because of our concern for the children being displaced from their homes during a school year. And we became involved in helping to furnish children's bedrooms, particularly since many children have to share a bedroom, a very small bedroom. We have been collecting bunk beds and trundle beds to give them more space, and yet the sleeping arrangements, because many of these children, frankly, have been sleeping on mattresses on the floors, and sometimes without mattresses. When we first started asking people for donations, sometimes we were thrilled that people from Hobe Sound to Jupiter to Riviera Beach to Delray to Boca have been giving us the things that we have asked for, that they have for sale, private individuals, not stores. And they also started offering us other furniture, sectionals, sofas, etc. Consequently, we are helping furnish whole apartments. I wanted to, thank all of our neighboring communities who have done this, and also to thank the people such as Mayor Felder, he and his organization, Jay's Ministries.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. And Councilman
McCoy.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, that completes public comments at this time.
All right. Mr. Manager, were there any questions to answer?
No, Madam Chair, it doesn't look like there's any questions per se.
All right. All right, item number 3.
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Riviera Beach, Palm Beach County, Florida, modifying and updating the city's 5-year capital projects plan for fiscal years 2019, 2020 through 2023 to 2024, providing for a severability clause and providing for an effective date.
A motion? Second?
Second.
All right.
Madam Chair, we do have public comment cards on this item. The acceptance of public comment cards on this item is now closed.
Mr. Manager?
Madam Chair, members of the council, if I can have Mr. Sherman to the podium to speak specifically to the capital projects and the projects specific to general government projects, and then get into more specificities on the other projects within the city's proposed budget for FY 2019-2020. Mr. Sherman?
Yes, good evening again. Yes, we break the capital projects into our general government projects, and then we have the utility district projects. So again, when we met on the 26th, we went through all of the individual projects, and every department came up and talked about their projects that they would like to include within the plan. What you have in front of you is the 5-year plan broken down by the funding sources. So it goes from grants and contributions. We use some gas tax, some of the impact fee revenue that we do bring in, our capital improvement money, which is cash. We have some funds that have been left from 2014. And then the pay-as-you-go is the money that we have put aside as a result of the FPL plant revenues that are coming in. We have the 1-cent surtax in here, and then we have, you'll see on the bottom line there, is a number of unfunded projects at this time. The total 5-year capital, including what we're carrying forward from previous years, is $123 million. That breaks down into $1.3 million for equipment, almost $90 million or $89 million of facilities, $16.8 million for infrastructure projects, and then we have some roadway projects, again, another $16 million. So again, what we do is we'll carry forward the projects that are in progress, and then our budget for next year is really that first column there that says 2019, 2020, and then again, next year we'll come back and we will, again, update the plan, and you'll see those projects in 2021, 2022, 23, 24 all shift into the 1 year earlier. So that was the general fund capital spending plan. And then under the utility district, again, very similar. You have your grants, repairs and renewals, which is part of the bond documents. We're required to put 5% of our revenues into repair and renewal every year. Again, they do have impact fees, still have some proceeds from the 2014 bonds, and then again, you see the unfunded projects. The unfunded projects under the utility district here are $155 million. That does include the $105 million that we put in for a new water treatment facility. Total for the 5 years for the utility district is $210 million. And again, as you look down at the bottom section, the breakdown there, $10 million for capital, $16.7 million is for facilities. We are running out the meter project, which is, again, $4.9 million. And then water infrastructure is $72 million. And then again, we have the water treatment plant at $105 million for, again, a total of $210 million of capital projects. And all the projects, again, are the projects we spoke about on the 26th, and the list of those projects were attached to the agenda.
Any questions?
Madam Chair,
Go ahead.
Mr. Sherman, fiscal year 2022, how do you imagine that we can get $20 million all in that fiscal year?
Are you back on general fund?
Yes, I'm
General
sorry.
fund, okay. Oops. Oops, I guess I had more slides.
22?
Yeah, let me go back. Okay, so which year now, 2022?
Mhm.
Okay, what we have in there is, if you notice, that's the 1 cent surtax money. So that's the primary funding coming in on that. And what that project is that is the City Hall complex. We're looking to finally start using these dollars. We're 2.5 years into collecting on the surtax, so we're finally starting to put that into the budget. Now keep in mind, every year going out, if we stick with the plan with FPL, we will have $4 million added for pay-as-you-go capital. We don't count that in the bank at this time, because again, those funds could be redirected elsewhere. But because that is a dwindling revenue source, that money we get from FPL for the plant does go down every year. We had put the $4 million into the pay-as-you-go capital. So part of that 2022, again, we're looking at the surtax money, and we're looking at the $4 million from FPL. And then again, we do have some grants, impact fee, there's some other miscellaneous revenues in that year.
Okay, I was speaking solely to the 1 cent sales surtax
Right.
of $20 million. How is that? I don't understand the correlation between that line and the pay-as-you-go capital. Are you suggesting we getting $20 million in 22 alone?
No, that's where we would start the budget of the project. So again, in order to put the project in and get it kicked off, we would have to say that we're going to use all that money, even though it may end up getting spread out. We put it all in 1 year at this point, just because we don't know how that project would roll out. So as we move forward and we adopt the plan, because next year that'll move 1 year forward, hopefully we have a better picture of exactly how that project is going to come to fruition. But that's where we've put it to, in essence, count for the surtax money that we've got coming in. And again, that money is anticipated to be the $23 million plus whatever investment earnings we add. So again, that number will always, will be changing as we go throughout the years.
Follow up.
Go ahead.
So if I'm correct, you're saying we're going to leverage at that point, starting in 2022, the monies that we anticipate for the next 6 years of us collecting the 1 cent sales surtax.
And I just want to say, if we're talking leverage as in borrowing, I wouldn't recommend that. If you're talking leveraging as in using it as part of a P3, that's kind of what we see on that. I don't think, we're already 2.5 years into the project. Over 10, the surtax is only for 10 years, which means you only have 7.5 years to go. I don't think borrowing that and using those proceeds to pay interest is probably the wisest thing, especially since we know that the project is going to take 4 or 5, 6 years to come to, completion anyway. So we put that in there. Again, if you enter into a P3 agreement with something, you're going to have to bring some cash to the table. They don't pay for necessarily FF&E type things, and it depends on how the deal is structured. So that's really why we put that there. We can certainly spread that out a little bit longer, but again, until I think we have a a full plan on how that complex is going to come together, I think any
Well, and Mr. Sherman, if I may, correct me if I'm wrong, is that we are projected to receive $23 million, but if the economy has a hiccup during that process, the amount that we anticipate to collect could be significantly lower. Because
that's true.
We experienced this in Pinellas County is they did penny for Pinellas, and what the county did was borrow the capacity that they were anticipated to collect as a result of the 10-year program, and they wanted to get their projects done quickly while the market conditions were good because they were concerned about the volatility that, yes, we may anticipate to collect 23 million, but in the next 4 or 5 years, if we see a significant downturn in the economy, you can see 23 million go down to 16 million because it's not a guaranteed.
Anything else, Mr. McCoy?
No, ma'am.
I'm sorry, let me jump because I did have a couple more slides. And then I'll take more questions if you have them. We did have some marina projects. Again, these are the projects we talked about with the new docks, E, F, and G, putting the security gates in and putting in the protective sleeve on the piles. So again, a lot of these funds are coming for grants. It's a 5-year project. 5.7 million, 2.5 of it is grants, and then the 3.1, some of that is matching, and some of that is actually coming in is from the operational cash. And then we had the stormwater projects, as I mentioned earlier. We do have some bond money left. That bond money is being used on the current street project, so those funds are actually already committed, and those projects should be wrapping up shortly. And then within the operating budget itself, there is some operational cash, and that's that $150,000 that you see out for the next 5 years. So the stormwater capital budget for 5 years is the $1.7 million. I think that's now my last one. There we go. Okay.
Any other questions or comments? And public comment cards? All right.
Mary Brown.
Mayor Bram, Riviera Beach, the capital projects, the infrastructure, some of our main complexes and complex buildings in this city is deplorable. And from what Mr. Sherman has said with the FPL, thank you for answering my question about that FPL money, because we were wondering about the FP&L money. So now You did say that there was, FP&L, it was 4 million, and it does go down. Now, we can project anything that we may want to project, but we could have some windfalls if anybody look and see the volatile, of our stocks and what goes up and what goes down. So we have to be physical in how we line up with our projects. This P3, we know the surtax, that penny tax was on a 10-year span, and we are already in a 2-year off from it now. So we really got to move on some things. And Lindsay Davis over there, I don't know whether you heard about Lindsay Davis, but with the water and stuff, we're going to have to try to do something for those people over at Lindsay Davis over there, because with the heavy rains and stuff, some of the ceiling and water and stuff got into those buildings there too. And another thing too, that we should utilize that Brooks complex over there a little bit more, because if we build that, it is supposed to serve to the hub of the community. So we as residents would like to know what's going on with that Brooks complex over there, why it is not serving the vast community and stuff. So that's one thing. And another thing too about our capital improvement programs, we need to be with our roads. It is so many potholes in the city here it's just ridiculous. But we got to get on the ball here some kind of way here. So I believe this board here can do it. And as a resident, I'm looking for you to do it. So it is some things here that we have to do. We have to do some things, but we still have to be fiscal in what we do in order to meet our needs for this city as a whole, not just one side, but the entire city as a whole. So the fire department, I did not say anything about the fire department
Thank you,
tonight,
Ms.
but
Brown.
we do need you. Thank you.
Madam Chair, that completes public comment.
All right, any questions or comments from the board? All right, Madam Clerk.
Councilperson Lawson?
Yes.
Councilperson Lanier?
Yes.
Councilperson McCoy?
Yes.
Pro Tem Botel?
Yes.
Chair Miller Anderson?
Yes.
Unanimous vote?
Items tabled,
None.
regular items, discussion and deliberation, item number 4.
Discuss disaster relief support for Freeport, Grand Bahamas.
All right, Mr. Manager.
Madam Chair and members of the council, this item is to discuss how the board wishes to proceed in providing staff direction as to how do we assist our friends and in some cases family members in the Bahamas as a result of the tragic hurricane that impacted the area. That island has seen significant loss of life, has seen their infrastructure decimated, has seen where they are performing life safety surgeries on backup power. Under the leadership of the mayor and this council, the city has opened a drop-off location for non-perishable goods, water, anything that we think that the residents of the Bahamas would need to recover. The city has been collecting. From the latest bit of information that I've been provided by the fire chief is that one shipping container is ready to be shipped, with potentially the second shipping container being ready to be shipped within the next couple of days or maybe even tomorrow, depending on staff's ability to load the shipping container. We do want to continue receiving items to be able to assist our friends in the Bahamas, but certainly having some support from the community with regards to staffing the operations. The chief has provided information to me as early as today that we're starting to see a large influx of items coming in, and fire personnel has been diverted to assist in recovering those items. So if we can have some volunteers, and if they are interested in volunteering, certainly reach out to our fire department at Station 1 to be able to assist. One of the things that the city has discussed as early as immediately following the hurricane after it left our area is being able to look to invest in the recovery efforts from the point of providing staff assistance, whether it's personnel from the fire or police department to assist in life safety services, to the tune of looking at heavy equipment operators to help clear some of the debris and the roadways. But this would be a concerted effort working with our partners in Grand Bahamas and Freeport to ensure that if we decided to deploy staff resources over there, that they would be able to work and assist the community as it recovers. Obviously, the duration would be something that we would have more discussions with, but our intent was to allow for personnel to go over there that for a period of maybe 3 to 5 days, but not having a situation where we jeopardize the ability of the city staff to provide the services here in the community. Before we would go ahead and do that or enter into any type of an arrangement that allows for that to occur, I wanted to get direction from this board how you wish to proceed, and obviously coordinating with international and state and local officials and federal officials as to how we can coordinate our efforts, because we don't want to be there and not be able to provide the essential services that the community needs. And so this is a international incident, and so it requires us going through some other processes in order to move forward. But had conversations with Mr. Sherman with regards to any contributions that the city would like to make in regards to purchasing equipment or goods or services to assist, and how we can leverage some of the existing relationships the city has to be able to provide a strong and aggressive response to the tragedies that have happened. Some of the things that we're hearing coming out of the Bahamas is heartbreaking, and I know that it is the desires of this board to do something, and staff wanted to have the discussion with the board as to how you wish to proceed, because we want to make sure it's in line with your overall vision, and to make sure that there's a unified approach as to how we proceed forward. So, Madam Chair, at this time, staff is prepared to answer any questions and to obtain the direction of the board as to how you all wish to proceed.
All right, do we have any, anyone would like to provide some input as to what you would like to see, or what some of your thoughts were in regards to the relief actions that we would be taking?
Madam Chair,
Go ahead.
I had asked City Manager earlier today what source of funding he thought we might tap, and he recommended, and I think very appropriately, that we might want to look at our community benefits dollars and direct them toward this effort. And I would support that, that we would take the community benefits dollars that we have from waste management and perhaps use them to support the Bahama relief effort.
Anyone else like to provide any input? That was one of the conversations I'd had with Mr. Evans as well, because I know, we obviously have a responsibility to our residents here, and so I don't want to appear to be taking money from the residents, and even though I'm sure it's because of the seriousness of the situation, I'm sure people have a kind heart and are understanding, but I don't want to overreach or overextend our services or, shortchange our residents in any kind of way. I do know with the community benefits, typically we give them to the nonprofits, and I'm sure in this instance, if we were to use those community benefit dollars, it would serve basically the same purpose as we would be doing if we were working with the nonprofits, because a lot of the nonprofits are in turn helping with the Bahamas relief. So I would certainly not have an issue with providing my $7,500 for the upcoming October distribution to go towards this effort. Anyone else?
Madam Chair?
Go ahead.
Based on the contractual obligation from Waste Management, are we eligible to use those funds for Bahamian Relief or a nonprofit that's not going to benefit the residents of Riviera Beach?
And I would have Mr. Sherman opine on that, but Mr. Sherman, correct me if I'm wrong, if the contribution is made to the city for a city-related activity or event or program, we have that flexibility to.
No, I'm fine.
It's intended to benefit the residents in, the city, so it's, I don't see why you couldn't. But it's, I mean, that's the policy of the board. If the board wants to change their policy and broaden it, they certainly could.
Madam Chair?
Go ahead.
Follow up. Okay, so if that's a direction that we look to do, then we have about 3,000 individuals that have migrated here to Riviera Beach and throughout Palm Beach County. So possibly looking to partner with a nonprofit using those funds to benefit some of the residents or some of the people that have come over from the Bahamas that are local. Because using those community benefits and sending them to the Bahamas, I think right now we have to really organize with the county and the federal government to see how we're going to actually benefit the people over there as opposed to the ones that are trying to migrate over here, because based on what I've seen, there's not much left right now, and they're going to have to just start rebuilding. So I think that those funds that we do have would be better served for people that are coming over.
Anyone else?
And there was just another follow-up, Madam Chair.
Okay, go ahead.
A few options of, I want to talk about the relief efforts that we're doing, but also for the individuals that are coming over as well. I want us to put that thought out to see what we're going to do for individuals that are here. There was a large group that was moved out of a shelter today that they're going to be putting into a hotel, and they originally were informed that they have 30 days at the shelter. Now they're being told they have 7 days at the hotel. So there's a lot of people that are just kind of displaced, and I want to try to provide as much support as we can, since we're going to have a new influx of people coming into the community, and then also housing opportunities. Jobs, well, we really have to look at these things that's going to be happening now.
Madam Chair, if I may, and the board can handle it as any way they see, but to Councilman Lawson's point, there is an opportunity to utilize a portion of it for immediate needs as far as the commodities and goods that need to be shipped over, and then another phase two, looking at the housing element as far as, or the assistance locally for any type of job readiness training or anything for folks that are going to be here. That presents a little bit more of a coordinated effort with us in the county. However, we are seeing a situation where the county as well as the state are really looking for the feds to step in and do something, as this is an international issue. But that hasn't materialized. So, if it's something that phase one is us looking to leverage the fiscal resources to get commodities, phase two is how can we look to transition or assist folks in the housing or the temporary housing with some of our local partners to be able to accommodate that. That's certainly something that we can do and provide some more research. And in the event that the board wanted to say they wanted to pledge their money for community benefits, we would still, whatever it is, have to bring you back a resolution to effectively memorialize the commitment that the city wants to move forward. So this is just a discussion with the intent to bring back a resolution for you to adopt here on September 18th as to basically the nuances of how the plan and proposal will work.
Madam Chair?
Go ahead.
My only concern would be just seeing exactly where we're going to apply it, how it's going to be engaged in actually helping the residents there and also that have come over here, and taking it away from what we do for the nonprofits in the community, because I know that they need a lot of help, a lot of support. But I just want to make sure it's not just a drop in the bucket, that we could be benefiting some of the residents here versus us actually sending some of our staff to the Bahamas, some of the relief funds, actually providing some housing support here, as opposed to just taking the community benefit away. So that would be my only hesitation with that part.
Anyone else?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
So if that is where we're to go as a board, my only concerns would be, I would only want to support something that very close, if not 100%, goes to actually serving that population because, members, I know we see a lot of community benefit requests. And a lot of times there's a lot of overhead that's included with some of these organizations and little or very minimum amount actually gets to the people that I guess it's intended to. And, I don't have a problem with it, but I hope there's some succinct measurables, well, not really measurables, because if it's getting to the people that we want, that we know needs it the most, but I want to make sure that that's what we're doing and not giving to an organization and then we really don't have, if you will, accountability or know exactly that it's being served. And then, I'm very cautious about the whole housing component because if we start, I don't know how we would potentially give to an organization that's going to offer housing. There has to be some sort of program, and clearly this is not our role as local government to establish some sort of sustainability plan, but to just think that there's going to be an open-ended, we continue to pay housing assistance for some that's displaced. I think that may not be the best use, but I certainly want to support it, but I want to know before I commit what that looks like and how that's going to be executed.
And Councilman, to your point, I think the mayor can speak about the partners on the Bahamian side of ensuring that we are going to get the resources over to entities that are going to ensure that the folks that are in need get the resources, and making sure that there is that accountability factor, because folks have asked us about taking financial contributions, and we said absolutely not. We're not taking financial contributions from the residents. We prefer the goods and the commodities to be able to ship overseas. And the other side of it is we want to make sure that we get them the necessary items without inserting bureaucracy into the process as well. And so that's, the mayor can speak on more specifics because we are working with their national outfit concerning emergency response to make sure that the items get to where they need to be.
And
Go ahead.
Question
Go ahead.
of the mayor. So the current containers you have now, is that, I guess the shipping for that, is that going to be covered by Tropical?
yes,
Okay, so there's no cost associated?
no cost to us.
Okay.
And Tropical is shipping it to NEMA. NEMA's going to distribute it. We have to be very cautious. I was talking to my brother-in-law this morning. It's a lot of stuff going over there, right? And right now, a lot of folk are not getting the NEMA supplies because, again, they're bringing it in, they're storing it, but then we have some parties that's foot soldiers that know where some of this stuff needs to go, and they're hand delivering it. I don't want us to rush as a board. I think right now, speaking to Cornish, the administrator that was here in August, simple thing, he lost his whole house. He doesn't even have any clothes, so we're going to send him some clothes personally, right? Because, again, he's worrying about the folk over there more than he's worrying about himself. So I think we just continue to do what we're doing right now, collect some stuff, because there's going to be a phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4, phase 5. Right now, I think we're still in the phase 1 stage of getting people water, getting them just some necessities that they need for every day. Until we find out more, I don't think we have to, do too much, but just concentrate on, having these drives to get Tropical trucks filled and get them over there, and we can continue to have this conversation about what's next.
And to the mayor's point, the NEMA is the National Emergency Management Agency, so it's an outfit through the Bahamian government.
Lanier.
I agree with the mayor in a sense that there have been so many reports coming out of the Bahamas about people posting fake GoFundMe accounts, people intercepting goods from people who are sent information over there, sent goods over there. So I think we as a board know that this is a recovery process, does not happen overnight, and that this is going to be a while for people to be able to get their footing, to be able to, the people who are left there, the people who are here, it's a long process for them to get back to where they are, where they were. So I think for right now, what we need to do is to make sure that the people who are on the ground over there and the people who have come here have some sense of um, I don't know, for lack of better terms, to be comfortable in the sense that they can be able to start putting their lives back together. So I think we as a board need to look at how we're going to continue the efforts that we have started and to be able to get those things to the people who are who actually need them right now.
Madam Chair?
Go ahead.
And a good way to start that is, and Chief Kerr, we have 35 volunteers right now that's ready to start tomorrow. Jatessa will be getting with you. And even for this board to, just give an hour of your time to volunteer at one of the containers and tell people, bring your stuff here. We have a reliable source that's going to get the stuff over there. We utilize them tropical. They're in our backyard. They're our family. They're going to make sure that stuff gets where it needs to go. And we continue that to stage 2, and then we come back and talk again about what else we can do.
And Madam Chair, to the mayor's point, one of the things that if the board chooses to pledge some of the community dollars is that we would go to our corporate partners and say, we have X amount of dollars on hand in cash for the purposes of leveraging it, that if we have $20,000 or $15,000, can you match us as far as in-kind contributions so we can get, $30,000 to $40,000 worth of things that are necessary to be able to get in those shipping containers, and then working with our partners on the county level, state level, and federal level to find out additional needs, but also to find out what we can do from a personnel standpoint to assist in some cleanup efforts, even if it's we send a strike team over, similar to what West Palm did for the duration of a weekend to assist in search and rescue, or heavy equipment operators to help move some of the trash and debris out of the area. Because the other side of it is we may send shipping containers, but after the items are utilized, where are they disposing of water bottles? They have no sanitation systems. Their infrastructure is decimated. So it's really a humanitarian crisis. So anything that we can look to assist, but also not place our employees in harm's way, not impact our ability to provide service, and make sure that if we go there, we make a impact on what's happening over there in coordination with the local government and the local elected officials to make sure that there is, when our folks arrive, that we can get to work and it's not something that we're sitting around waiting to be able to respond, as it's going to take a significant amount of time for this country to recover.
Anyone else? All right.
I do have one question, Madam Chair. How do we know, it was reported that 1,100 Bahamians came over on one of the cruise ships. How do we know where they ended up? And I saw something recently in the paper that they're being enrolled in local schools. Do we have any way to track where they've gone? Or, if we were to try to help the people who have come over, how do we find them?
Chief Kurt, I think you have some information concerning what's going on with respect to the efforts that are happening countywide with your peers.
Yes, sir. And I'm just going to try to pull some information here. I was actually at the port this Saturday when the vessel came in, the grand celebration, and basically the individuals that were brought over were 23 legal U.S. residents. We had 500 U.S. citizens and just under 900 foreign nationals. So those weren't Bahamian residents. All of those individuals, and our understanding as we were working with them and treating them at the port, the majority of them had friends or family here in the United States. Some of them had residents here in the United States. Some were from other countries that were just trying to get to the United States to get back to their country. There is a shelter facility that's open in South County. And they thought maybe about 10% of those individuals that came back would probably need some type of short-term sheltering. I haven't really heard much more about that throughout the day. We're just a little bit more concerned on what we're going to see the next 30, 60, 90 days, depending on what happens with an influx. I know Palm Beach County EOC is working on their mass migration plan right now in the event of, but it's undetermined at this time what the Bahamian authorities will allow and what the U.S. will allow. There still is an immigration policy that's really kind of muddying the waters on what the U.S. will do. And not to mention, the Bahamians are very prideful people. They want to do for themselves. A lot of individuals are actually looking for resources. There's actually a request out right now from the fire chief over in the Bahamas, looking for fire equipment, looking for extrication equipment. It's not necessarily, in most cases, that they need an abundance of help. They're looking for the tools and equipment to do the job themselves. So there's a lot of different factors at play, and right now I think it's just kind of a wait and see, and through communication, it's looking at what's next, what's needed next. There's conversation about municipalities in the area trying to donate a fire truck. You know, a lot of times when we trade in fire trucks, we get pennies on the dollar. That might be a consideration. So there's a lot of different avenues that we're working as well to try to get them what they need to do the job.
Thank you.
And we're keeping a close eye on it, Ms. Botel. It's ever evolving, minute by minute.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? In regards to the housing issue, I have those same sentiments. I know we've had a few other people that have come in the past about wanting hotel bills paid because of them being displaced for various reasons. And I just think that's a pretty fine line of crossing that would be best served is to not do that, go that route. But I do want to commit to my community benefits for October. The manner in which it would be spent, obviously that's not something I have an idea for tonight, but I do want to commit those funds, and at another time I could present how that would happen. Anyone else?
Madam Chair, I feel the same way. I'd like to commit mine.
All right. Do you need any other direction from us?
No, Madam Chair. What I will do is work with legal to draft up a resolution that encapsulates some of the items that the board talked about here, and if any other elected officials choose between now and the September 18th meeting to do something as it relates to the monetary contributions. And then I'll also put in some information about our ability to assist once information is provided to us on how we can assist and making sure that it's coordinated with the appropriate state agencies to be able to go there and actually provide some assistance to the residents of the islands, and specifically our sister city that was impacted greatly by this hurricane.
All right. All right. Item number 5.
Madam Chair, we have some public comment.
I'm
cards.
sorry. Okay.
It's okay. Mary Bram, Erica Davis, Latoya Perry.
Good evening, board.
Good evening.
I have some questions. I do agree that we should do everything that we can to help our sister city. They are our family as well. Kudos to the Palm Beach Post. In this great article here, Riviera Beach says it's stepping up to help our Bahamian family, as well as the ex-Riviera Beach mayor. It was something that's posted. Everybody that can, if somebody can do something, then we all are achievers. I would like to know, what would our personnel do over there, you know? Would they be paid for the leave time? Those are a couple questions too. And I do believe that we should continue with the drive. We should continue with that, because some of those areas over there are decimated, but within that island, you have a lot of K areas over there too. And you have some of the Bahamians that have outright said that they would not come. They would stay there. They want to rebuild. So for you, giving your community benefit dollars is wise. It is a great investment, because you will see that investment and it will pay off, because it would help them that desire to stay there rebuild. And you have to pool this money and put this money with the type of cooperation that would basically, say that this is for rebuilding, because it's so national that everybody is giving funds, so that's no strange thing. So I commend you council people that wish to do that, but we do know that this is a long process. You're gonna have PTSD. Hell, I probably have PTSD just with the hurricane. It kind of had us all stressed from this way to that, but we are still standing. So we have to do everything that we can, to help our sister cities. So invest those dollars. I totally agree with somebody that said up on that board that sometimes with these community benefits, some of them are just over the hill. So this is so worthy here. You have children there, that are totally, you have just a variety of human beings that are totally affected, from this devastation. So continue to do what we can. I'm glad that we do have a ship that's going out. The water is so badly needed. I mean, water is life. And if they do not have that water in their body, they cannot survive, So I commend our
Thank you, Ms. Brown.
the staff as well. Thank you.
Erica Davis, Latoya Perry.
Good evening, Board. Erica Davis, Riviera Beach.
Good evening.
Well, I've been on Facebook for the past week in reference to the Bahamian situation. And I think the logical thing to do, which I'm always talking about logic, is to continue to receive the supplies. They're bringing people from over there every hour, all day, every day. The people want to leave. A lot of them might stay, but we have like 3 or 4 storms out there in the water right now. And we can't determine what's going to happen. So as far as monies, I think you should hold on to that thought for a while and see what they're doing over there, because they're bringing people over. They're out there in the elements. They don't have anywhere to live. They're not going to be able to sustain that for days and weeks. They even said today that it's going to take a year to bring up the water and the lights. 1 year. So they're not going to be over there. They can't withstand that for a whole year. So the best thing to do is to wait and see if they're going to bring all the people over here and continue to collect the goods and use them for the people that are already here right now. Maybe you want to take some over there, but I don't think all of them are going to remain over there. You have dead bodies over there that's smelling, that health-wise they can't even be over there. So hold off on your dollars, collect the goods, use them over here when they come over here, and don't worry about the housing. You guys have, the state and the federal have to figure that out later. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Latoya Perry.
Hello, Council.
Good evening.
And thank you for your constant efforts on everything you're accumulating to send to the Bahamas. I wanted to address the issue about housing. Here in Riviera Beach, we have a lot of empty houses and landlords that are willing to rent. Instead of placing the Bahamians in hotels, how about setting up an interlocal agreement with landlords and then creating a program that they get housing, then get jobs, and then get accountability of how they're managing their money and how they're working in order to make them self-sufficient in our community. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, that concludes public comments.
All right. All right, item number 5.
Madam Chair, the following resolution is a discussion item, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Riviera Beach, Palm Beach County, Florida, authorizing the creation and establishment of a citizen surtax oversight committee for the purposes of reviewing the city's program as it relates to the projects identified by the City Council as a part of the adopted surtax plan providing for an effective date. Madam Chair, we do have public comment cards on this item. The acceptance of public comment cards on this item is now closed.
All right, Mr. Evans?
Madam Chair and members of the City Council, this item before you is to seek direction as to how the board wishes to proceed with establishing a project for the purposes of the City of Riviera Beach developing a surtax plan. Originally, the conversations happened a couple months ago when the board attempted to appoint individuals to serve on the surtax committee, and staff recommended that the board identify a project or a list of projects that they would like to see the surtax monies expended on. It is projected over a 10-year period that the City of Riviera Beach would receive about $23 million. Out of the $2.69 billion that will be levied over a 10-year period for the purposes of the surtax, local municipalities are intended to receive 20% of that, which is $537 million, with the Palm Beach County School District receiving the lion's share of the money at a little over $1.3 billion. It's important to denote that the surtax differs from transactions subject to state sales tax, and a local option sales tax only applies to the first $5,000 worth of purchase on taxable personal property. The voters voted to move forward with such an initiative, and the city has been receiving money for the surtax program. One of the things that staff has had the discussion about internally is that there is approximately $341 million worth of projects that is communicated in the fiscal year 2019 to 2024 capital improvements plan. The largest projects that you would see in that plan would be for the utility district, which would be a new plant, or the City Hall complex. Staff had conversations as well as looked at what are the most pressing items to be able to address associated with the monies that are collected, and it was the thought that the monies can be allocated for the overall City Hall campus, understanding that in that campus we can anticipate the construction of an emergency operations center that houses both police and fire, a City Hall complex, library complex, and other ancillary support city services. The cost of that facility, just City Hall, in the projected analysis that staff completed, was approximately $62 million. The intent behind this item is, one, to provide you with a draft resolution that staff would like to get your opinion on, and then to move forward with authorizing the city manager to begin identifying, once the board selects the project, to begin to identify the elements that will be incorporated in a surtax plan, to then move forward with creating the documents to establish the Independent Citizens Surtax Committee, and then to share that plan with the committee so they can move forward once construction commences. That committee will be required to present to the board on an annual basis and provide oversight to the projects that will be categorized under surtax, penny sales tax projects. So at this time, staff recommends that the board provide us direction and identify a project, and then allow for staff to move forward with bringing the appropriate supporting documentation and plans forward for consideration.
All right, we have public comment cards?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Let's go with the public comment cards.
Mary Graham.
Mayor Bram, Riviera Beach, please put that back up on the board there, please. Okay, the city projected revenues over 10 years, 23 million, proposed project for the use of 1 cent assistance in funding of the new municipal complex, and that includes the library and everything. Okay, it was made mention about the utility district. We know that that infrastructure there, you know, our water department, our usage of our water here is derelict. And we as residents too, we were hoping that some of this monies and stuff would meet some of those critical needs as well as there too. So we know that, I said before, we have so much of derelict infrastructure in this city till it's bleeding. But we do need to move on some of the things that we can move on. But I also, and not just me, the residents too, have talked about our utility district and the infrastructure there too. And we know that we need a new municipal complex. I know this is some tough issues here, but we have to face these tough issues and meet these critical elements of our city. And I know that we expounded on this, but you also have to realize too, Chief Kern said, we do have the Bahamians, they have dual citizenship over here. A lot of them are over here because they do have family and relatives and stuff over here. You have 500, like in terms, he said, they have dual citizenship. They are not just coming over here, they are coming over here because they do have family, friends, and others that also can assist them as well. And when we get into that housing thing, now even as residents of our own city, they talk about housing and stuff too. So you have to, it's some gray areas here, because if you make provisions for housing for one, you have to also meet the housing needs that are here within our city here. And we know housing all over the land is in dire need of housing, not just for those that are displaced, but within our own city. We have people that are displaced that need housing and stuff too. So it is some gray areas here. So we need to work in those areas that are workable, and we can't pit one against the other, because housing is critical, not just here, but in Palm Beach County, all over. So take into consideration of that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That concludes, Madam Chair.
All right. Questions, comments, input from the board?
Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
The purpose of this discussion, though, is to determine whether or not we are wanting to set up an oversight committee, yes?
The
Not
intent is,
necessarily, go ahead.
the intent is for the board to identify a project or projects, and then I would bring back the attached resolution if the board had any tweaks or modifications to the attached resolution with an application form for folks to go ahead and proceed forward with submitting their applications to serve on the oversight committee. But we would have to develop the plan concurrently while we're accepting applications for the oversight committee, and then the board ultimately would appoint individuals to serve on that committee.
But the resolution itself doesn't specify the plan, it just...
Yeah.
Anyone else? Yes.
Mr. Manager, so I'm okay. I guess how specific does the plan need to be? Can we just, I guess, decide to do with the municipal complex? I particularly would kind of steer away from utility district, because they have a lot more capability of raising debt financing and that sort of thing, but kind of use it for the municipal complex. Can it be as general as saying
Yes, sir.
municipal complex?
Yes, and then we can drill down more specifically in the plan that the municipal complex includes the following facilities, not to exclude, X, Y, and Z. But to your point, you're absolutely right. The utility district has borrowed capital and will be moving forward with a lot of projects. This is more so looking at more general fund related operations.
Well, that's my recommendation, municipal complex. However, I was looking at some of the whereas clauses, and I'm gonna tell you, this almost seems specifically 10, 11, and 12, and it's not numbered, but the last three on the first page and the first one on the second page. But I don't know how the application process to work, but I'm seeing that you're asking for business leaders, too small, too large, as well as residents. So I want to understand first, is that a criteria that we have to fulfill from each one of those categories, too large, too small, and residents?
And we can modify that to say something that we would, but when I looked at other municipalities, they had it down to that specific, that they were looking for folks with construction or project management or finance or business-related fields and those types of things. So we can clean that up and say that this is ideally, in the application, we can put something, ideally, we are looking for folks with this type of expertise, but ultimately, you as the board can appoint whomever you'd like, but most groups have gone as far as having people with a financial background or with a capital project management or engineering or those types of things, so.
Follow up.
Go ahead.
The 11th whereas clause, it says considerable experience. Who determines that? Us as individual members?
Yes, sir.
Okay. While I certainly appreciate that note of having individuals from banking, accounting, management, consulting, construction, and/or infrastructure development, it seems to be a little restrictive. We've seen how difficult it is to attract members to some of the advisory committees that we have now. If a person is in nonprofit or in public sector, I don't want it to be a deterrent or a potential restriction. So I don't have a problem with preferring, and I certainly understand what you're going for, but I just think if you put something like that, that may just deter someone from applying altogether.
Yeah.
And then that sort of thing, but it does seem a little restrictive.
Yeah, we can modify that. We can take it out and communicate it in the advertisement that we're looking for, but it's not, a criteria that you have to have. Just
You could put it as preferred,
Preferred.
just like you were saying.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I like the business owner because, quite honestly, if we didn't have business owners, we wouldn't be talking about a 1-cent sales or tax. So I'm very much open to having individuals in the business sector are part of it. So I'm certainly okay with that. Thank you.
All right, anyone else? I have a question. So for the 23 million for the municipal complex, do we have, based on any of the drawings that we've done, do we have a total amount of what the municipal complex comes up to? I know we haven't really committed to anything.
Sherman, you may have some.
Yeah, we did working with Public Works, we did a pretty, I'll say a detailed analysis of what we thought the costs are going to be, but not getting too specific down into the weeds, and it was about $142 million.
Okay, okay,
And that's
Okay.
today's dollars.
right. Okay.
Mr. Evans, I think it's the third whereas, it says approximately 23 into that scenario that you suggested earlier. Would it be appropriate to say up to? Because, it seems like when you say approximate, right, we may never get there, or we could very much exceed it, so it seems a little bit anticipated. 23 million seems almost like, that's assured that's going to be what we're going to have from the 1 cent.
Yeah, we can change that.
So, yeah, some tweaking there.
Okay.
That's it.
All right, anyone else? Mr. Lawson, Ms. Lanier, Ms. Felder? Anyone? All right.
So do we have a motion or something, or do we make a
Yes,
motion?
we need
Call
direction
it
from
as
the board.
you need.
Do you need to read this resolution? Do you
This is
gotta
just a
change the
draft
language.
resolution, just so the board sees it it doesn't see it for the first time when we bring it back to you, so I'll make the edits that the council has recommended, but we just need a motion from the board to effectively identify a project, so I can go ahead and incorporate this into the resolution and then begin working on the plan.
So I'll make a motion that we identify the municipal complex as the project.
Second.
All right, Madam Clerk?
Councilperson Lawson.
Yes.
Councilperson Lanier.
Yes.
Councilperson McCoy.
Yes.
Pro Tem Botel.
Yes.
Chair Miller Anderson.
Yes.
Unanimous vote.
All right, discussion by city manager?
Madam Chair, just a couple of things that I'd like to get some direction from the board. I wanted to see if the board was inclined to have a workshop on September 21st, which is a Saturday. from 9:30 to about 3:30 to talk about some pressing public policy items that we need your direction on. Not something that you have to provide me an update today, but if that date doesn't work, I can certainly do a doodle calendar and see what other dates may work with the board. The hope is to possibly get the board together maybe once a month on Saturdays to be able to get your perspective on some overarching things that we need to address big picture, so we can be able to provide some good items for you to consider, and it's not the first time you're seeing it and trying to make public policy or legislate from the dais, that we can incorporate all your concerns in an item and then bring it to you for a smoother regular meeting. So if the board has some availability.
I said that I was open for a lot of Saturdays, and that's the one Saturday I just realized I can't.
So we can look to push that back or forward, whichever the board is inclined to consider.
We can push it, Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
We can do the 28th, because the 21st,
Good.
I have two things on the 21st, so we can do the 28th.
Okay.
That'll be good for me.
Okay. The 28th. Okay. I will go ahead and work with the clerk's office and the assistant manager to get some items on the agenda. Some of the items that we will discuss, one of the big items is going to be the discussion on Peanut Island. The representative from the port wants to provide a update, and then we get into some more substantive issues also. We want to discuss submerged lands and then the Monroe Heights project. So those are probably the three items that we will work with the council to make sure that we're prepared to address that. And so it may be a total of 4 items in its entirety. And that will be at 9:30. So 9:30 to about 3:30 would be the time that we would set aside for that workshop. Also, I've been approached by the Port of Palm Beach. They would like to have a joint meeting with the council, and the 2 dates that we threw out there as potential dates would be Thursday, September 26th at 6 p.m. or Monday, September 30th at 6 p.m. Do any of those dates provide for a conflict, or is there any date that works better than the other?
They're both fine for me.
I think it's fine for me, but I believe that's a holiday. I don't know if.
Rosh Hashanah.
Yeah, so if that matters for anybody.
What's the date again?
September 30th.
September
now
30th or
you're-
September 26th?
I'm not observant, Jim.
The 30th would work better for me.
30th.
Not the 26th. then.
Okay. And last but not least, we would like to, if the board is amenable to, your regularly scheduled meeting with the CRA is set for September 25th, and we didn't know if the board would be inclined to indulge staff to allow for us to have an executive session concerning PBA negotiations, whether it's before that meeting or immediately following after that meeting. We didn't want to have to bring you in for another meeting if not necessary.
30?
It can be something that starts at 5:30, or we can do immediately following the CRA budget meeting, whichever the pleasure of the board is.
Okay, either way.
I'll do it before.
I think
Before?
before, though, is better. Yeah.
Okay, and what time works best for the board, 5:30?
Yeah.
Okay, 5:30.
On a Wednesday, yeah.
And, okay. I think that may be the items that I have. Just a brief presentation. Chief Kurd would like to recognize the leadership that was displayed by this council during Hurricane Dorian. And Chief, if you can kind of provide them what they will be receiving tonight.
Absolutely. Chief, would you like to come on up? While we were in the EOC during Hurricane Dorian, it was a breath of fresh air for the first time in my career here in the city of Riviera Beach, where council allowed us to do our job unimpeded. And I want to tell you, thank you for giving us the opportunity to serve this community and empowering us with the trust to do so. And I think we were able to display, while Hurricane Dorian did not impact us the way that it impacted our neighbors in the Bahamas, we were prepared, we were ready, and I think it was one of the best unified efforts that I've seen in Riviera Beach. So it's customary in police, fire, and in the military that when you go through an exercise together and you're successful in completing that exercise, there's a token of appreciation that's given out. And the token of appreciation we have for you is the Riviera Beach Fire Rescue Challenge coin. This challenge coin is shared, and I want you to carry this with you, because if you ever get caught without this challenge coin, there's a price to be paid. So if we could go ahead and call you, go up there.
Yeah, we can have the council come down and we can
Council,
get a quick photo.
Mayor Felder, if you'd like to come on down. And by the way, I want to thank you for the reinforcements tomorrow. Much appreciated. Thank you. Chairperson Miller Anderson?
Oh, no, they get to keep it, right? Yeah, they get to keep it. You can use my city phone. Thank you. And then I'll just send it to Mr. Evans and he can do what he want to do with it. Another note. I understand that.
He's ready to put it on eBay. He's got ready for eBay.
So, just do a search and check, and if you have it, send it to us.
Mr. Evans, can you look this one? You ready
Yeah.
now? Thank you. All right.
Okay. 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 You took one, how many did you take? No, you did, you did.
That's right.
And that concludes my comments, Madam Chair.
All right.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Before we proceed, and I need a motion authorizing the city clerk's office to notice a workshop on September 28th at 9:30 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. The joint workshop, the joint meeting with the Port of Palm Beach for September 30th at 6 p.m., as well as a closed executive session on September 25th at 5:30 p.m.
So moved.
We have a second?
Second.
All right. Madam Clerk?
Councilperson Lawson?
Yes.
Councilperson Lanier?
Yes.
Councilperson McCoy?
Yes.
Pro Tem Botel?
Yes.
Chair Miller Anderson?
Yes.
Unanimous vote.
All right. Discussion by city manager? You have any comments?
No, thank you.
City council committee reports? Statements by the mayor and city council? Oh,
Just
you
a
have-
quick, update. The environmental subcommittee that I serve on will be having, I think I've mentioned this before, but we'll be doing an award ceremony for companies in in the county that have done an outstanding job in terms of protecting the environment, and I'll bring more information on that as it develops.
All right. Statements by the mayor and city council. We'll start with the mayor.
No comments.
All right. Councilwoman Chair Pro Tem Botel.
I have to read this headline first because it was written by this person who writes great headlines. Dirty Dorian dumped debris onto beaches. I love that. So let's clean it up together. Tomorrow morning, bright and early, 8:30, we'll have two teams, one starting in the Marriott, at the Marriott, 3800 North Ocean Drive, and one starting at our own city beach, and we're going to work towards each other till we get that beach cleaned up of all the debris that's come over, unfortunately, some of it from the Bahamas, which is very sad. But we do want to clean up the beach, and we're looking for volunteers. I have gotten a commitment from Johnny Longboats to provide us with coffee and donuts when we're done, so there'll be a little reward at the end. And we've also gotten a nice commitment for volunteers from Loggerhead Marine Life Center, the Oceanside Beach Service, the Marriott, and Amrit for volunteers and supplies. So bring your neighbors. There'll be a lot of good people out there helping us clean the beaches up, and we look forward to seeing you either at the Marriott, 3800. I myself will be at the Ocean Mall at 8:30 tomorrow morning. Thanks.
Councilman McCoy.
Yes, just one item, Madam Chair. Members, I want to bring to your attention, I did, I think I may have said this probably personally. Certainly, I told this to Councilman Lawson, since when we were in the Florida League of Cities, his legislative aide was following me around, removing my business cards from all of the raffles that I had entered into. But I will say this, he did miss one, because I actually won a $500 gift card to the charity of my choice from the Florida Recycling Council, and I chose to donate that $500 to Friends of Riviera Beach to support the Stony Brook Furniture Initiative. So you missed that one, Mr. Jackson. So not only that, members, what I decided, and I did have a conversation with the manager, I am going to use $1,000 of my community benefits, which is going to be on the agenda at our next regular city council meeting. And that gift card was for Rooms to Go. And I'm going to ask any members who have any remaining funds to consider contributing to the Friends of Riviera Beach for the furniture fund, Mr. Lawson, before the October 1st deadline, because I would like to see if we can use that to ask Rooms to Go to potentially match whatever we can come up with to help those in our community who we all know is the most vulnerable and in some cases the most needy. So certainly, members, I would implore you to consider Friends of Riviera Beach.
Madam Chair, I'd like to pledge the remaining community support dollars that I have to the Friends.
Well, you're going to put it on the agenda.
Yeah,
right?
I'll put it on the agenda for next
So
week.
I have my item already on the agenda. So.
Right, yours is already on the agenda. You just do the application. I would certainly love to do that, but I have many applications that are
Well deserving, sure.
No, that I've had since March. So my money is expended already.
Madam Chair.
May I say one?
How many are we trying to furnish? How many apartments?
I think they had 32.
32? How many do we have to date?
How many are already furnished? How many are already furnished?
12? They're not ready to move the furniture into. We're putting this furniture into storage.
Okay.
And then we're going to stage, when we get enough furniture, then we're going to move it into the storage. But they're finishing up to 32 apartments, but unfurnished.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Was that the end of your comments, Mr. McCoy?
Yes, that's all I have.
Could I
All
say,
right,
Madam
hold
Chair?
on, you already had your
I know, but I
comments.
forgot something.
Okay, we'll come back to you, hold on. Ms. Lanier?
I'd just like to say thank you very much to the employees of the city of Riviera Beach, fire department, the police department during the hurricane, especially to Mr. Evans for constantly calling us to keep us updated, about what was happening during the hurricane, but especially to the employees of the city of Riviera Beach for their hard work, and especially to the assistant city attorney, city manager, Deirdre Jacobs, for her constant calling to keep me updated of what was happening with the city and what was happening for our employees and for our residents here. Thank you so much.
Councilman Lawson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to echo those sentiments. Our staff was amazing. They kept us abreast with everything. We were prepared, and that's what I was very excited about. I just want us to pray for the Bahamas. Wanted to also commend Captain Scott Smith with the Dolphin Dream. He jumped right into action. He actually dropped his first load of supplies over to the Bahamas over in West End, right near Freeport. He partnered with Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated, the Nirvana Experience, Glades Global, and Vibe 95, and all of them took a collection gathered throughout Palm Beach County and dropped off about an 80-foot charter over there of supplies there that went directly to the people. So there was no red tape they had to go through. It actually got to the residents over there. So I wanted to thank Captain. He's going to be taking another tour or trip this week as well. And also, I want to announce that on September 17th, we're going to be hosting part 3 of the mental health in the minority community, bipolar disorder and schizophrenia. It's going to be right here in the chamber. So please, residents, if you can come out, all staff, department heads, it's going to be September 17th. We're talking about schizophrenia and bipolarism, minorities, mental health in the minority community. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. My comment was that I wanted to thank also the staff of the city, but in particular, the level of communication. People said to me they had never had that level of communication in the past in any emergency, and they were so grateful. You know, sometimes when people are under stressful situations, they really just need to hear from someone. They just need that little bit of reassurance or that communication as to what's going on, and people were so appreciative of that, and I wanted to make that comment tonight.
We certainly appreciate it. I did work the call line, and it was funny. Some people were asking, I didn't know if somebody would pick up the phone. and then they would say, who's this? I'm like, Jonathan. And they're like, oh, I didn't think you would pick up the phone. But yeah, it was crazy.
It was outstanding.
It was fun.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say the same thing that most of you already said during the hurricane, that we really got by really it was very close. But one of the things that Mr. Evans did do when we had Irma that came through in 2017, he did something very similar, but it was not as detailed. I don't think we had the hotline. He added a lot of new features this year with this hurricane, and I think he deserves a lot of credit for that. And his staff was on point every single minute when they gave their updates. I mean, they were straight professionals. I was very impressed, and I believe the community was very impressed with the way in which we kept them informed, as Dr. Botel just said. So kudos to you all. Again, thank you all so much. I think at some point I was like, oh, Lord, it's almost 4 o'clock. Let me go get on the phone again. Yeah, no.
I would set alarms for myself.
I know, I was setting alarms too. I'm like, okay, they're going to be called. It's time to call in. But it was great. So when we have more, because I understand there are some things that are out there in the water now, so we had a good test run, and I think we'll be good if we have to do it again.
Madam Chair, I forgot
Yes.
one person, Mr. Walter Stevens, who made
Oh,
sure
yeah.
that everything was put out. He made sure that people had the right numbers. Kudos, Mr. Walter Stevens.
Yeah, he did.
Stick your head out, Walter. Thank you, Walter.
And we did have the opportunity to have a celebrity on the phone with us.
Yeah, that was nice, yes.
We did have 3-starred General Russell Honore on the phone with us to kind of give us some lessons learned during one of our conference calls. So that was nice and much appreciated.
If we have no other business comments, we stand adjourned.